What Wei Xiaobei saw was specks of white, but in reality these white specks were fist-sized eggs. As the eggs fell on the sand, they quickly incubated and hatched within half an hour. Countless sacred beetle descendants limped out of them, all covered in mucus. Newly born sacred beetle descendant had soft bodies. Their shell only gave off a slight tan color, but under the effects of the golden radiance, their shells turned bronze and hardened in under 20 seconds. The amount of specks that the radiant sacred beetle sprayed out was too much for Wei Xiaobei to count. In just 10 minutes, the amount of sacred beetle's descendants had already surpassed the initial amount of sacred beetle descendants that were previously climbing up the mountain. What a powerful reproductive ability! Wei Xiaobei felt his back tingle after seeing this. Let alone for other people, if the radiant sacred beetle pointed its back part towards Wei Xiaobei, he would have to run for his life. Whoosh! A long time of laying eggs seemed to have exhausted the radiant sacred beetle. Waves of air drained out from its body. And as if they had received a signal, the ready and waiting sacred beetle descendants threw themselves towards the mountain with an earth-shattering grandeur. When the sacred beetle descendants left the golden radiance, each of their bodies continued emitting a golden light. It appeared as if they had become the radiant sacred beetle themselves. Compared to before, the speed of the beetles had doubled and even the ones with bigger bodies were able to fly up dozens of meters into the sky. These beetles quickly approached the fiery red mountain range. However, when they got close and began climbing up the mountain wall, they began digging at the mountain wall. They threw down the soil and stones, while those below them quickly caught them between each other and returned back the way they came, pushing the soil and stones in front of the radiant sacred beetle. Millions of sacred beetle descendants cooperated, making them highly efficient. In a short time, a small hill had formed in front of the radiant sacred beetle. At this point, the radiant sacred beetle lowered its head and gnawed on the small hill, swallowing large amounts of red soil and stones into its stomach. Perhaps because the sacred beetle descendants' actions of digging at the mountain was viewed as much more hateful, more fire crows flew out from the fiery red mountain range only after just a few moments had passed. Their numbers exceeded 100, and there were even other creatures that could control fire within the mix. Wei Xiaobei from a safe distance away, was still able to clearly see that there were more than 10 scarlet pheasants. Other than the scarlet pheasants, there was even a snake with 6 limbs and 4 wings. Its body was around 3 meters long, yellow in color, and was surrounded in red fumes. Its body was faintly discernible through the smoke, and from what he could tell, it appeared to be similar to the divine dragons in Chinese legends. 6-limbed, 4-winged snake. Wei Xiaobei racked his brains. Only then did he remember something in the classic of mountains and seas called a Fei-Yi. This Fei-Yi was one of the more unique monsters in Chinese legends. Other than having 6 limbs and 4 wings, it was said that its appearance brought great droughts. It was almost the same as the Yong. However, looking at its imposing manner over even the scarlet pheasant, it was clear that it was at least equal to or above a 3-star creature. Naturally, Wei Xiaobei only based this on his own judgment. As for its true identity, he was too far from the battle for his battle-log to receive any new input. The scarlet pheasants were the fastest among them. They directly collided head-on with the sacred beetles. From Wei Xiaobei's point of view, the scarlet pheasants were much stronger than the fire crows. Not only did their flames have a higher temperature, their speed alone was already enough to get rid of its enemies. With a loud boom, the scarlet pheasants hit the ground, igniting the sacred beetles and turning them into balls of fire. However, when the scarlet pheasants flapped their wings and soared back to the skies, the golden light on the beetles' bodies suddenly intensified and instantly extinguished the flames. Even the beetles that had been burned till they were half dead also recovered. The only difference between the latter and the former was that the latter's golden light disappeared. However, this did not seem to be that serious. The latter beetles returned back to the range of the golden radiance and once again came out with golden light covering their bodies. As a result, the pheasants' attacks were only able to kill a single unlucky sacred beetle. The fire crow's following attack was also largely abetted by the golden light. At this time, Wei Xiaobei understood one thing. The golden light on the sacred beetle descendants' bodies was like an extra life. As long as their injuries were not life-threatening, they could use the energy of the golden light to recover. Some of the fire crows that had flown too low were even counter-attacked by the sacred beetles. Naturally, these particular sacred beetle descendants that dared to provoke the higher-level monsters were also penalized. Those that had gone too close to the fire crows were attacked by higher temperatures that far surpassed the previous temperatures they had been exposed to. Every sacred beetle descendant that dared to charge towards the fire crows instantly turned into ashes. However, these fire crows had also more or less received an attack from them and became somewhat injured. Some of the fire crows even dropped to the ground and were immediately submerged under a sea of beetles. At this point in time, no matter how high the temperatures around these fire crows were, they were still instantly torn to pieces by the sacred beetle descendants. However, these fire crows did not just resign to their fate. At the moment they were torn to pieces, a fierce flame came out from their bodies, and directly triggered an explosion, blasting the beetles on their bodies to pieces. However, there was just too many beetles. Even if a single crow self-destructed, it could only kill a few thousand beetles. This was only a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Following the large losses taken by the fire crows, more fire crows flew out from the mountain range, increasing their forces. As for the six-limbed, four-winged snakes that were watching the situation from afar, they had also began to move forward. After they reached a certain distance, they opened their mouths and lightly inhaled. In an instant, countless grains of sand rose up, turning the whole place dusky for a period of time. The grains of sand then wound around the sacred beetles in its vicinity. The golden light on these beetles glowed like light bulbs in the darkness, defending against the sand. However, the sand continuously whittling away at the golden light, quickly using it up. Gradually, the golden light around the sacred beetle's body lost its shine. Soon, the sand charged towards the sacred beetle's body, sucking out its moisture. It was as if it had aged by 1,000 years. After the death of this beetle, more beetles were caught by the sand. They quickly lost their golden light and died after being dried. This move was too terrifying, a six-limbed, four-winged snake that could let out sand and kill more than thousands of sacred beetle descendants. From its efficiency, it was over 3 times more efficient in killing compared to the scarlet pheasant. However, Wei Xiaobei felt that this move seemed very familiar. After thinking a bit, he realized that this was the move used by the Yong. The only thing different was that the Yong let out the sand from its body, while the six-limbed, four-winged snake was able to use the sand on the ground. Leaving aside the method of killing, it was easy to tell that the snake was much more stronger than the Yong based on the damage it could make. After this, more fire crows and snakes appeared, while the sacred beetles were quickly dying off. In just this short amount of time, more than 100,000 beetles had died. Killing more of them would only come with time. Facing the fact that a lot of its children were dying, the radiant sacred beetle did not care at all. It only kept on eating the soil and stones that the sacred beetle descendants were bringing. On the other hand, the fire crows, scarlet pheasants, six-limbed, four-winged snakes did not try to invade the golden radiance. Perhaps they knew that once they entered the area, they would attract the radiant sacred beetle's mad attack. Seeing this scene, Wei Xiaobei envied the fire crows and scarlet pheasants. Being able to control flames was too good, especially with the long-range attacks. Even if the enemy did not die after burning an entire area, slowly burning them from afar would still end up killing them. In killing sacred beetles, flames were much better than electricity. However, the six-limbed, four-winged snake that could control the sand was much more awesome. Moreover, Wei Xiaobei guessed that the sand was even able to absorb any creature's moisture. Otherwise, the sacred beetle would not have dried up in an instant. A sense of passion rose from Wei Xiaobei as he compared himself to it. No matter what the ability, as long as he could raise its level, the power would not be small. If he could just raise his release electricity skill to the point that he could shoot it out like the thunderworm, then his skill would without a doubt be several times stronger than controlling flames. From the massacre by the strong monsters, the sacred beetles had decreased in number to the point that a layer of ash had covered the mountain wall. The ashes were all the corpses of the sacred beetle descendants. However, the sacred beetle descendants had already lost their minds. They used their all to climb up the mountain and dig up more soil and stone. Seeing this scene, Wei Xiaobei was a bit suspicious. Without a doubt, the sacred beetle descendants belonged to the radiant sacred beetle, but the radiant sacred beetle was only watching the massacre without even counter-attacking. Naturally, Wei Xiaobei could only be a spectator. Without a choice, he had no way of making the radiant sacred beetle do what seemed to be the right choice. Moreover, this matter did not concern him at all. Time passed by, and the sacred beetle descendants' casualties increased on the slope of the mountain. A large amount of sacred beetle descendants had been turned to ashes or dried corpses. Suddenly, the radiant sacred beetle stopped eating and raised its back part. Is it laying eggs again? Wei Xiaobei instantly widened his eyes and looked. If this trend continued and the radiant sacred beetle laid more eggs, it would still be impossible for it to defeat the strong monsters. The difference in ability was too big. In the battle between numbers and ability, numbers had been completely defeated. Even if the radiant sacred beetle had given the sacred beetle descendants the golden light, they would still be annihilated. As a result, Wei Xiaobei did not agree with the radiant sacred beetle's tactic of sending out beetle waves. However, this time, what came out from the radiant sacred beetle's back part was not tiny white specks. Instead, they was 3-meter huge, coconut-sized eggs. The shells were also glimmering in golden radiance. This kind of coconut-sized eggs were a lot bigger than the fist-sized eggs. In just 10 minutes, the radiant sacred beetle let out over hundreds of these eggs. After laying them, the radiant sacred beetle lied on the sand. It clearly appeared to be much more tired than before, but it still opened its mouth to eat the soil and stones that the sacred beetle descendants had brought. It did not even pay any attention to the large eggs it had just laid. The incubation period of the larger eggs were a lot longer than the smaller-sized eggs. Wei Xiaobei felt numb in his entire body. Though, this was not caused by any immediate threat, but due to staying in the same position for a long time. Adding the weight of the sand, his blood vessels had started to become blocked. After half an hour, the golden light around the eggs disappeared and movement started showing from within. With a crack, protrusions appeared on the large shells. With more cracking sounds, a large jaw appeared in the opening of one of the shells. A large insect that was more than 3 meters in size appeared from within and crawled out to bathe itself in the golden radiance. Very quickly, the large insects surrounded the radiant sacred beetle in a circle. These large insects had a similar appearance to the sacred beetle descendants, but their bronze shells had a slight blue glow. Their soft shell quickly hardened under the temperature and the golden radiance. At this time, the sacred beetles outside the golden radiance were killed by the strong monsters, only leaving about 10%. It was only then did they begin to escape. However, the strong monsters did not chase after them into the range of the golden radiance at all, even after seeing their retreat. It was as if they were extremely afraid of the radiant sacred beetle. At this time, the radiant sacred beetle appeared to have recovered all its energy as it swallowed the remaining amount of soil and stone. Afterwards, it sprayed out from its back part again. Countless white eggs poured down, landed on the sand, and were quickly incubated. Soon, millions of sacred beetle descendants surrounded the radiant sacred beetle again. Hum. The radiant sacred beetle let out a hum. The recovered sacred beetle descendant army once again surged like a tide towards the mountain range. Seeing the sacred beetle descendants move again, the other monsters became excited and once again began their massacre. The amount of gains that they were receiving was not small. A few fire crows had grown while the scarlet pheasant's flames increased in intensity. As for the six-limbed, four-winged snake, the sand that they controlled had increased in density. Seeing this scene, Wei Xiaobei was left feeling slightly enlightened. The white mice that were cooperating in the laboratory building popped up in his mind. He was able to roughly understand that massacres were the best way to gain strength. After these monsters killed their enemies, they would be able to obtain power to strengthen themselves. Naturally, it was not as meticulous as his status panel. He had already felt that his status panel's existence was somehow amplifying his gains. While Wei Xiaobei was thinking of these things, the sacred beetles were now under attack once again as they dug at the mountain wall and counterattacked from time to time. However, not long after, the giant beetles had formed a line, flapped their wings, and charged forward. Wei Xiaobei had temporarily named them large sacred beetles. The large sacred beetles' appearance had changed the situation on the battlefield situation. Just like the sacred beetle descendants, the large sacred beetles were also covered in a golden light when they left the golden radiance. Moreover, their bodies were huge, and their shells were incredibly hard. The impact upon collision would be very strong. Even if the fire crows wanted to burn it to death, they would not be able to do so in the similar short amount of time. As for the scarlet pheasants that liked to kill their enemies with their speed and flames, they simply did not dare fight the large sacred beetle straight on. They could only fly past them and attempt to ignite them. Whoosh, whoosh. Countless six-limbed, four-winged snakes worked together to make the sand rise and move towards the large sacred beetles. Under the effect of the sandstorm, the large beetles seemed as if they were stuck in mud as their speed rapidly decreased. The golden light around them had also been suppressed by the sand. However, the six-limbed, four-winged snakes could only control a certain area, not everywhere. The majority of large sacred beetles acted like tanks as they bashed and collided with anything in their path. They broke through the wall of monsters and caused a loud bang as they hit the mountain wall. The collision force of these beetles was very powerful. As the countless large beetles bashed against the mountain, the ground shook. Every fire crow that was hit along the way died in an instant. Even the sacred beetles that were working on the mountain wall were bashed to death. Their large jaws collided against the mountain wall and had actually got stuck in it. Afterwards, they started to struggle free from it, causing soil and stone to crumble down the mountain. In a few seconds, the large beetles had dug out a huge hole on the mountain wall. The sacred beetle descendants moving behind the large sacred beetles became even more busy. Their work of digging and transporting was turned into transporting only, increasing the efficiency of the whole army by a lot. Huge volumes of soil and stone were transported to the radiant sacred beetle ready for consumption. In reality, Wei Xiaobei was a bit suspicious as he looked at this scene. He questioned why the radiant sacred beetle did not eat anything else but the soil and stone of the fiery red mountain range. Could it be that the soil and stone of the mountain was full of nutrients? Thinking about this, Wei Xiaobei suddenly became slightly terrified. His intuition was sending him a warning. Wei Xiaobei's intuition was already at 11 points. After being supplemented by the negative Jing, his ability to sense danger and foresee it had become much stronger. Wei Xiaobei immediately focused and did not allow himself to get even a little bit careless. Without a doubt, the entire battle will change once the radiant sacred beetle made its move. Wei Xiaobei unraveled the strips of cloth on his arms to check up on his injury. The injuries caused by the sacred beetle descendants had almost fully recovered. Although there were still scars left and was not fully healed, it would not have much of an effect on Wei Xiaobei's movements. Wei Xiaobei turned around and then moved his hands and feet as he crawled away from the fiery red mountain range. At this period of time, the fire crows, scarlet pheasants, and six-limbed, four-winged snakes slowly lost control of the battle after the large beetles came out. Killing these large beetles in such a short amount of time would be hard for them. Just the golden light alone would take them a lot of time to remove. Moreover, the large beetles' hard shells made them sink even more into despair. The large beetles might not have strong fighting abilities, but their spine-tingling defense already made Wei Xiaobei give up on thinking of any ideas of trying to kill them. Even the six-limbed, four-winged snakes could only slow down the large beetles' advance, but were unable to break through their shells to absorb their water content. The large beetles had already exceeded the six-limbed, four-winged snake's ability. After 5 minutes, Wei Xiaobei had crawled onto the side of a sand dune. He immediately leapt like a frog to get rid of the sand on him. After that, he stuck close to the ground without letting his torso touch the ground, and crawled towards another sand dune. Wei Xiaobei was feeling slightly emotional thinking about his crawling method. Before his agility attribute had increased, Wei Xiaobei was very slow at this crawling method. At the very least, he was only a bit faster than a normal walking pace. However, now that his agility had increased and his hand-eye coordination and flexibility had increased to 16 points, Wei Xiaobei could move at a faster speed without letting anything trip him. His reflex and balance, on the other hand, allowed him to be almost immune to all obstacles. In a way, his crawling method had become spider-like. The speed was not that much slower than his normal jogging pace. In reality, animals using 4 limbs to run instead of 2 was a reasonable finding. Animals that moved on all fours were not slow, except for naturally slow animals like turtles. As he was quickly crawled on all limbs, Wei Xiaobei had quickly distanced himself from the fiery red mountain range. He moved until he was back at the valley filled with giant black scorpions. He sat down on the peak of a sand dune and slowly ate the hardtack he brought in his backpack, while staring at the mountains. Wei Xiaobei had not fought much, but due to the increasing temperature near the mountain range, he had lost a lot of energy, especially after crawling back. However, he felt that he was now in a safe zone, though he still did not let his guard down. At this time, the radiant sacred beetle was feeling fully rejuvenated after eating. The large sacred beetles were hitting the wall and the sacred beetle descendants were transporting soil and stone in large quantities. Their speed was so fast that the transportation speed had surpassed the radiant sacred beetle's eating speed. As this trend continued, the monsters that lived in the fiery red mountain range could only stare at the radiant sacred beetle as it ate. They were uncertain if the radiant sacred beetle would attack the mountain and kill them all after it ate its fill. The battle strength between two sides would not even need to be mentioned. Just the size of the radiant sacred beetles could tell you that the monsters of the mountain range were no match for it. Just a single bash from it would leave all of them breathless. Moreover, the radiant sacred beetle still had other unknown abilities. The digging speed of the large beetles was fast. The mountain wall was like tofu in front of their big jaws. By just inserting the jaws into the mountain wall and pulling it back had easily created huge holes in the mountain. Some of the large beetles that seemed to be single-minded continued to dig through the mountain with their bodies already inside. Bang! A large sacred beetle seemed to have hit something hard as it dug. However, it did not give up at all. It retreated 10 meters and then flapped its wings to increase its momentum as it struck through the giant hole. Boom! The sound of the beetle hitting something bell-like echoed from within the hole. The large beetle looked extremely disoriented as it came out of the hole. It seemed to have hit something and heavily regretted it. Following this fierce strike, the fiery red mountain range shook. This shaking was definitely not caused by the large sacred beetle strike. It was also impossible for it to be the radiant sacred beetle. Boom! The fiery red mountain range shook again. This time, even the sand around the mountains were also shaken. The 5 crows, scarlet pheasants, and 6-limbed, 4-winged snakes were immediately frightened. They had even let go of the sacred beetle descendants that were already in their mouths. They immediately turned around and flew up high in the sky. In contrast to their actions, the sacred beetle descendants and the large sacred beetles were still digging at the mountain wall. Even in the face of the fierce shaking, they did not sway at all as they calmly continued their tasks. Only the radiant sacred beetle changed, and stopped eating. Its antenna, that was more than 30 meters long, began to sway, as if it was trying to pick up something. The shaking from the mountain range increased in intensity. Even Wei Xiaobei, who was 5 kilometers away, could feel it. This scene made Wei Xiaobei remember the scene of the radiant sacred beetle's appearance. Could it be that another large monster is going to appear around the mountain range? Could it be that it's the one that's creating all the shaking? At this time, the radiant sacred beetle let out a hum as it seemed to have found some kind of danger. It did not even care about the stone and soil in front of it and moved backwards, pushing its back part into the sand. However, compared to the speed it came out from the sand, returning back inside was much slower. Before half of the radiant sacred beetle's body had been drilled back into the sand, a loud boom sounded. Even with blurry sight, Wei Xiaobei could see that there had been a landslide on the mountain range. This was truly a real version of a landslide. In an instant, there was an earthquake and the mountains shook. Countless rocks fell down the mountain wall. At this point in time, the radiant sacred beetle came back from its standstill and quickly escaped. However, it was already too late. Most of the sacred beetle descendants had been directly buried under the rocks. As for the large sacred beetles, they used the momentum of the fall to leave the vicinity of the mountain. It was initially not that bad as only a few small stones fell. With the large beetle's shells and body size, this was not a big problem. However, when rocks larger than them suddenly began falling, their shells began to let out cracking sounds after being hit. It was to the point that they had a hard time crawling back up. A few large sacred beetles were still able to fly, but they were smashed to the ground by large rocks from above, trapping them underneath. In the vicinity of 100 meters around the fiery red mountain range, it had become a disaster site as rocks of different sizes dropped down like meteors. A large amount of the sacred beetle descendants and large sacred beetles had also been buried under the rocks. At this time, the landslide seemed to have reached its peak. The entire mountain range that appeared as if it was completely buried, instantly blew up. Countless rocks flew everywhere. The skies and earth had been completely covered in rocks. The most unlucky one was the radiant sacred beetle. A few rocks, over 30 meters wide, directly hit against it and its body that was already half buried was sent flying by the rocks. It had flown a kilometer away and then landed on its head, burying its head in the sand. Even the 100-meter-long radiant sacred beetle had been knocked flying by a few big rocks, let alone the rest of the sacred beetle army. After the fiery red mountain range collapsed, a large shockwave swept outwards. Everything had been engulfed in it, creating a huge sandstorm. The sacred beetle descendants and the large sacred beetles could not even touch the ground as they were blown away by the sandstorm. Naturally, the radiant sacred beetle's side was not the only one that suffered casualties. When the large sandstorm engulfed everything, the fire crows, scarlet pheasants and six-limbed, four-winged snakes that were observing above the skies were also dragged in. In an instant, the fiery red mountain range had been submerged in the sandstorm to the point that its outline could not even be seen anymore. This sandstorm had even spread, until it was quite close to the sand dune Wei Xiaobei was on. In reality, if Wei Xiaobei had not rushed to dig a hole in the sand dune and hide inside it, just the large stones that were sent flying by the sandstorm would have been enough to do him in. Even with Wei Xiaobei's health reaching 20 points and his sturdiness that had reached 14 points, this did not signify that he would not die if he got hit by such a large stone like that. Even an elephant or a whale would probably die after being hit by such a large stone. Even when Wei Xiaobei was hiding 5 to 6 meters under the sand, he could still feel the continuous violent shaking. He felt as if he had been placed on a massage chair that was still turned on and vibrating. After a while, the shaking stopped. Wei Xiaobei ignored his wobbly body that had been affected by the continuous shaking, as he strived to dig himself out of the sand. After finally digging himself out, he took a deep breath. If he had stayed in there for another moment, he would have probably suffocated to death. At this moment, the sand dune had changed shape. Large amounts of stones had been scattered around the desert. Some large stones that had exceeded 3 meters had even sunk in the sand. It was easy to imagine what Wei Xiaobei's ending would be if he had not hit himself in the sand. When Wei Xiaobei was inspecting his surroundings, another shockwave spread towards him from afar. It's from the direction of the fiery red mountain range. Wei Xiaobei quickly moved to another sand dune and looked towards the mountain range. What is that? At this time, the sand storm in the direction of the mountain range had disappeared. Everything looked blurry from the distance Wei Xiaobei was at, but he was able to see that another huge monster had appeared in the mountain range. Wrong. The mountain range was no longer the 1,000-meter-long mountain range anymore. It had already been occupied by a long snake that was more than 600 meters. Long snake? No. That's not a long snake. The shape of the figure in his eyes was too familiar. Its head was shaped like a bull. It had deer-like horns, prawn-like beady eyes, elephant-like ears, snake-like neck and abdomen, fish-like scales, phoenix-like claws, and tiger-like palms. Every Chinese citizen should know what this thing was. It was a dragon. The symbol of China. However, the dragon that appeared only had 3 claws. Regardless of that fact, Wei Xiaobei was extremely excited. This was his first time seeing a dragon. In Chinese legends, dragons had appeared many times. Every single line where the Yellow River was mentioned, dragons would also be mentioned. Moreover, there were also mentions of dragon shrines and sacrificial offerings that would bring forth rain. Moreover, ancient Chinese emperors would often brag about how they were descendants of dragons and wore clothes that were called dragon robes. The beds that they slept in would be called dragon beds, and their illnesses would be called a dragon's indisposition. When an emperor rose into power, it would be called a dragon's excitement. The places where the emperors stayed at before they were enthroned would be called the dragon's residence. If their wives become pregnant, they would call it bearing a dragon's child. And their children would be named as a dragon's grandson. The royal families in ancient China would use ornaments with dragon motifs and designs. If a cabinet minister had infuriated the emperor, it would be called assaulting a dragon's scales. Feng Shui would call places with a lot of energy as dragon cavities and mountain ranges with a lot of energy as dragon veins. In short, dragons held a high position in Chinese culture. It was something that foreigners could not understand, but every offspring of China would. This scene in front of him was something truly unexpected for Wei Xiaobei. He never would have imagined that the fiery mountain range was actually occupied by a dragon. Perhaps because it had been asleep for too long, rocks had formed on its body, making it look like a mountain range. This should be a fire dragon. In Chinese legends, a majority of dragons flew into the skies to bring forth rain. In other words, they were experts at controlling rain. The Dragon King of the Four Seas, Dragon Kings of the Yellow River and Yangtze River, as well as other Dragon Kings, verified that dragons were really creatures that ruled water. However, this did not mean dragons did not know how to play with fire. In Master Qing Dong Xian's work, Record of the Unusual, there was a passage that went, on the 10th year, 6th month and 4th day, in the county of Pinggu, a fire dragon appeared. Its body was covered in purple flames and it passed by the fields. Hundreds of hectares of land were burned to nothing. Although this fire dragon was not covered in purple flames, its body was still covered in flames. It was easy to see that the fire dragon had originally been asleep. In the end, the daring radiant sacred beetle had awoken it from its slumber. However, the mountain collapse was merely caused by the fire dragon's awakening. This time, the dragon appeared to have fallen asleep once again. In reality, Wei Xiaobei felt depressed at this scene. He did not know how to describe it better. You made such a huge movement and destroyed the 2 factions that were fighting, creating such disastrous losses, yet you are just going back to sleep. Are you teasing us? In reality, the fire dragon going back to sleep was a good thing. With the immense gap in power between Wei Xiaobei and the dragon, although Wei Xiaobei felt fond of it, he also feared it tremendously. Just making a few movements was enough to cause such destruction. If someone had actually provoked it, Wei Xiaobei did not know what would happen, and did not want to know what would happen. Anything that could go wrong will go wrong. Wei Xiaobei was not clear what kind of philosophy this was, but what happened next proved exactly that. Just as Wei Xiaobei was thinking whether he should go closer take a look or not, suddenly, the radiant sacred beetle that had been stuck in the sand for quite some time had moved. It could be assumed that the radiant sacred beetle had passed out after being hit by a large rock, but because of its hard shell and strong vitality, it was able to escape death. After moving around a little, the radiant sacred beetle increased its struggling force. After struggling for a while, it finally pulled its back part out of the sand. Indeed, it was the back part that had gotten stuck in the sand. If it was the head that was buried in the sand, it would have probably just escaped by burrowing itself deep in the sand. After pulling itself out, it, for some reason, did not immediately escape. It had probably been injured. As a result, it lied down on the sand and once again released the golden radiance from its body. Seeing this scene, Wei Xiaobei understood that it was healing itself. The effects of the golden light should be of a healing attribute. However, when the golden radiance spread, the fire dragon that had gone back to sleep suddenly moved. The radiant sacred beetle simply did not notice this at all. It only continued to heal its injuries under the golden radiance and even increased the intensity of the light. Very quickly, the dragon's head faced towards the radiant sacred beetle's direction. With only less than 100 meters of distance between them, the dragon's long and narrow eyes silently watched the radiant sacred beetle. Seeing this scene, Wei Xiaobei did not know if he should call the radiant sacred beetle stupid or brazen. The fire dragon was already looking at it and the radiant sacred beetle, itself, had already noticed the fire dragon, yet it did not escape at all. On the contrary, it stuck out its butt and tried to pull it back, as if it was about to release more eggs. The red dragon's following actions perfectly matched Wei Xiaobei's thoughts. Boom! The red dragon raised one of its claws and smashed down towards the radiant sacred beetle without any hesitation at all. With a loud boom, the golden radiance was not able to block the force at all and instantly shattered. The radiant sacred beetle's hard shell had been left caved in. Perhaps because the red dragon's striking force had just the right amount of power, the radiant sacred beetle's back part shot out large eggs, sending the eggs flying like artillery shells everywhere. The red dragon did not even care where the eggs went at all. Boom! It struck with its claws again. In the first strike, the shell had caved in. In the second strike, the radiant sacred beetle's shell had been shattered to pieces. Some of the juices that came out from the shell had stuck to the dragon's claw. In an instant, like gasoline igniting on a torch, a ball of fire formed in the blink of an eye. The fire dragon opened its mouth and sucked the ball of fire, making it disappear in an instant. After the dragon was done playing, he went back to its original spot. Once again, it went into resting position while lazily placing its head on its back, going back to sleep. Wei Xiaobei had roughly understood a lot of things from just witnessing the scene. The radiant sacred beetle had probably fancied the rocks that had accumulated on the fire dragon's body. After all, the fire dragon was such a strong existence. Even the rocks that made their home on its back probably had huge benefits. At the very least, it looked attractive to a monster like the radiant sacred beetle. It was so attractive, that the radiant sacred beetle even ignored the monsters that had originally lived in the fiery red mountain range such as the fire crows, scarlet pheasants, and six-limbed, four-winged snakes. However, what it never imagined was that the fiery red mountain range was actually a fire dragon. In the end, it was turned into a dismembered corpse with just 2 strikes from the dragon. Its body had even exploded and was swallowed by the fire dragon, leaving nothing behind. At that time, Wei Xiaobei could not help but rejoice at his crisis perception. Otherwise, he would have probably died without knowing what happened. A single sneeze from an existence like the fire dragon would be able to easily break all his bones if he was close enough. Wei Xiaobei was only an ant in front of it. Whoosh! A supersonic sound suddenly passed by. Wei Xiaobei barely had time to lie down on the ground and dodge, when something fast flew by, almost causing Wei Xiaobei's death. Ignoring the sand on his body, Wei Xiaobei looked behind him and saw a large egg half buried in the sand dune behind him. Right. That is the egg that was squeezed out. The egg landing so close to him was an unexpected surprise for Wei Xiaobei. Wei Xiaobei had previously witnessed how strong the large sacred beetles were, but when they had just come out from their shells, they were incredibly weak. Wei Xiaobei stretched out his hand, grasped the great spear, and jumped down the sand dune. He dodged past the rocks that were stuck in the sand and sent out his spear towards the large eggs. The large egg exceeded 3 meters in diameter. It was impossible for Wei Xiaobei to miss it. In an instant, the spear had pierced the egg. Something Wei Xiaobei did not expect, happened. The egg shell appeared very soft, but his sharp and flexible great spear was only able to insert an inch. Wei Xiaobei was unable to break the shell in one go, and there was even a rebounding force which had sent his great spear bouncing out. Whoosh, whoosh. Wei Xiaobei pulled back and thrust it again. In a few moments, he had made 7 thrusts on the egg shell, but the great spear was still not able to pierce through the shell at all. When Wei Xiaobei pulled back his great spear, the depressions on the large egg quickly recovered back to its original state. Wei Xiaobei stuck the great spear on the sand and frowned at the large egg. This situation was something he had never imagined. If it was a normal insect egg, it would have been very weak and the insect's success in laying was calculated by numbers. Many insects would lay eggs everywhere and not lay it in a single place. And then, when the insect came out of the egg, they would make the place their home and multiply. However, the radiant sacred beetle's egg was different. After being sent flying this far, it did not break at all. Even his spear was unable to pierce through its shell. The shell was like an enhanced rubber board. Wei Xiaobei pondered for a while and then retreated 20 meters, stopping only when he reached the top of a sand dune. He spat out the muddy chi residing in his body and with a light shout, he leapt down and increased his speed. Iron Mountain Lean. When he was about 5 meters from the egg, Wei Xiaobei increased his speed again and focused all the power of his body into his left arm. He then struck the egg with this immense power. Bang! His elbow collided with the large egg, causing a large impact on the egg, until Wei Xiaobei's entire body had sunk into the egg. However, in the next instant, the egg once again had a rebound effect and sent him flying backwards. If Wei Xiaobei was not agile enough, he would have probably hit a large rock. When he was sent flying, he quickly grabbed onto the great spear and used the resistive force of the sand to stop himself from flying away. With such a strong rebound force, Wei Xiaobei would not have been able to get away from receiving heavy injuries if he had hit a large rock. However, when he stopped his body, he had also spit out a mouthful of blood. When he spat it out, he felt slightly more comfortable and looked at the large egg. Although the large egg had shot him backwards, it had still received 40% of the impact, rebounding 60% of it. Looking at it, the egg was unable to defend against the strong force. As a result, the egg vibrated, making the large sacred beetle inside restless and start to gnaw itself out of the egg. Everything had a weakness. This was an ancient truth. Wei Xiaobei could not deal with the flexibility of the egg shell, but because the large sacred beetle tore it open, a small hole had appeared on the egg shell and quickly expanded. A soft-bodied large sacred beetle climbed out from the egg. Compared to a matured large sacred beetle, this large sacred beetle was without a doubt, weaker. Without the brilliance of the golden radiance, it was not able to quickly harden its shell, and Wei Xiaobei immediately pierced it. Poochie! The spearhead did not meet any obstructions at all as it pierced through the beetle. In fact, if Wei Xiaobei had not pulled back his spear quick enough and kicked the beetle away, the beetle would have probably bit him. Even though its shell was weak, the large sacred beetle was still a 3-star creature. Its vitality was something the Wei Xiaobei could not compare to. Wei Xiaobei had already took the time to look at his battle log. The large sacred beetle's true name was not called large sacred beetle, but just sacred beetle. Moreover, it was a normal 3-star creature. The 3-meter-long great spear pierce was not enough to make it go down. On the contrary, this had only aroused the sacred beetle's fury, causing it to pounce towards him. If the sacred beetle had been under the radiant sacred beetle's golden radiance, it would have been able to harden its shell. Once its shell was completely hardened, Wei Xiaobei would have no way of harming it at all. No matter how strong Wei Xiaobei was, he couldn't even compare to the 6-limbed, 4-winged snake. However, it was different now. Without the golden radiance, the sacred beetle had not yet fully matured. Adding the fact of its premature incubation, it had lacked 2 legs and its wings had not yet formed. Moreover, with its shell softer, it could not block Wei Xiaobei's great spear at all. With these 2 factors, the sacred beetle's power was at rock bottom. After almost being bitten by the sacred beetle, Wei Xiaobei changed tactics. Every time he attacked he would strike it from behind. The sacred beetle's turning speed was slow. Moreover, since it was lacking a few legs and wings, its charging speed was also slow. Wei Xiaobei moved like he was dancing as he continuously thrust the great spear towards the sacred beetle. Every time the sacred beetle was pierced, a bull-sized injury would be left. Gradually, the sacred beetle's shell was hardening to the point that Wei Xiaobei's great spear started bouncing back. However, it was already too late. Even if the sacred beetle was able to stop its injuries from increasing, the holes already on its body were leaking out fluids, further weakening the sacred beetle. In the end, Wei Xiaobei thrust his spear 3 times to cut off its head. In the end, it could not stand still anymore and dropped to the ground. Its 4 limbs could only twitch as it lost its earlier ferocity. After following a careful and consistent method, Wei Xiaobei continued to thrust his great spear until the evolution points in his status panel changed. Afterwards, Wei Xiaobei did not rest at all. He pulled out the white mist knife and dissected the beetle. Every time he cut out an organ, he would take a look at his status panel to see if the organ had any uses. After busying himself for a while, Wei Xiaobei put his knife away and rested on the sand. The sacred beetle's death had given Wei Xiaobei generous rewards. Just the evolution points alone had given 480 points. Among the monsters that Wei Xiaobei had defeated, this was the one that gave him the most rewards. Other than that, he gained 2 items on hand, damaged sacred beetle ovary and sacred beetle jaw. Moreover, perhaps because his white mist knife had been stained with the strong monster's blood, a change had occurred. White mist knife, sharp, slight corrosive property, currently evolving. After paying attention to the words in his status panel, a brief description appeared. To evolve the white mist knife, it needed to be stained with more strong monster blood. As for the other items, they came from the sacred beetle, but their uses were different. If the damaged sacred beetle ovary was in perfect condition, it would have been able to create 1,000 eggs and turn into 1,000 sacred beetle descendants. However, after being damaged by the great spear, it only had one use. Feed, increases obedience. After inspecting it some more and finding that there was no other description, he temporarily placed it inside his backpack. The sacred beetle ovary seemed to have orb-like things inside. There were no blood stains on it, or any smell, so he did not have to worry about it ruining the backpack. As for the sacred beetle jaw, there was only one side. It was very hard to the point that the white mist knife was only able to leave a small scratch on it. The other side was not fully developed. As a result, it was not as soft as to be destroyed in one of Wei Xiaobei's attacks. As for the description of the sacred beetle jaw, it was much more simple, material. In other words, it was used as material to create other objects. Wei Xiaobei looked at it. It was around 1 meter long and was shaped like a bent knife. He made a note to search for a way to later on turn it into a knife. Wei Xiaobei could not just put the jaw inside his backpack. As a result, he used a strip of cloth to make a scabbard and bound it to his back. These two items, however, should not have been everything that it could offer. As a normal 3-star creature, the benefits he could gain should not be only this. However, because the beetle was not yet mature, and because Wei Xiaobei had heavily damaged it, this had made it hard for him to obtain any more benefits from it. After finishing his tasks, Wei Xiaobei looked at the distant fire dragon and shook his head. I would probably not be able to come back to this desert for a long time. With the fire dragon there, a small amount of carelessness would mean death. After inspecting everything once again, Wei Xiaobei moved away from the fire dragon. Although the fire dragon's movements had changed the landscape, Wei Xiaobei was still able to remember the direction, so he did not worry about getting lost. The way back, however, was not smooth sailing. He did not know if this was caused by the fire dragon's movement, but on his way back, he did not see a single giant black scorpion at all. He only saw countless stones and boulders. SSSS. After walking for a while, Wei Xiaobei suddenly felt a sharp pain on the soles of his feet. When he raised it up, he saw that a sacred beetle descendant was biting his soles. Even after it being in the air, it did not release its hold at all. Wei Xiaobei frowned and released electricity. A blue spark flowed through his blood and shocked the sacred beetle descendant hanging onto his foot. The sacred beetle descendant's tight grip suddenly loosened, and after falling down, Wei Xiaobei stepped on it to its death. How great would it be if I had an intact pair of shoes? As Wei Xiaobei thought this, he waited until the injury healed before continuing onward. Wei Xiaobei had already anticipated that there would be difficulties on the way back. After all, the shockwave caused by the fire dragon had sent countless sacred beetle descendants flying. There were even sacred beetles among them. These sacred beetles and sacred beetle descendants were everywhere, so there were bound to be a few of them on his way back. However, even if he had prepared his heart for it, Wei Xiaobei still had a hard time against sacred beetle descendants that popped out from the sand. These insects that loved to fight in groups had just lost their leader. As a result, they started fighting each other. Wei Xiaobei even saw these sacred beetle descendants fighting each other, and so he could easily pick off sacred beetle descendants while lying in ambush. Those sacred beetle descendants had been stepped to death by him. On the other hand, Wei Xiaobei was not able to defend against the sacred beetle descendants that had buried themselves in the sand. From time to time, he would be left with painful bites from them. After walking just 200 meters, Wei Xiaobei had been bitten 8 times. But he had also killed all 8 of them, earning 40 evolution points. However, his foot was already dripping with blood, to the point that it was hard to directly look at it. Wei Xiaobei stepped on another sacred beetle descendant and inspected his surroundings before sitting on the ground. If this situation continued on, this long return trip would become even longer. He thought of trying to just directly return to his room from the desert. Although he knew that he could return back to his room in reality, without returning to his room in the dust world, the period of him falling asleep and returning to reality was dangerous. This was especially so as he was in the desert filled with sacred beetle descendants. If he made a single mistake, his body would be filled with holes by the time he returned to reality. In order to quickly resolve this problem, he placed 200 points into his reasoning, increasing it to 12.08 points. Although this number could still not compare to famous detectives, it was at the very least at the level of experienced police officer. After using 200 points, Wei Xiaobei received a huge migraine. He felt that his thinking ability had become better. After pondering for a while, Wei Xiaobei found a way to get out of this dilemma. His strength was like a giant compared to those sacred beetle descendants. However, it was hard to find the critters once they hid in the sand. Moreover, they were better at hiding than the giant black scorpions. A small amount of carelessness would make Wei Xiaobei fall into their trap. Wei Xiaobei looked at his attributes and skills once over. His release electricity skill was his best way to defend against the sacred beetle descendant's sneak attacks. However, without increasing the voltage and electric current to the point of being able to release it in midair, the sacred beetle descendants would be able to bite him before they were shocked. His other abilities were even worse as none of them fit the situation. The only one that seemed to be of use was his perception attribute. Wei Xiaobei thought for a bit and began putting points into his perception. In reality, his 11 points in perception was not a low amount for a normal human. In an extremely quiet place, Wei Xiaobei would be able to hear any sound from 200 meters away. However, in the desert, the sand could absorb the sound. This decreased the effectiveness of the perception ability. As his evolution points decreased, his perception increased until 15 points. It was not that Wei Xiaobei did not want to increase it to the limit, but because there was a limit to his evolution points, so he could not just carelessly use them up on one attribute. Next, he placed his attention on his intuition and placed 300 evolution points. In Wei Xiaobei's point of view, intuition was much more important than perception when venturing into the dust world. A stronger intuition would allow him to foresee danger, and this point alone was enough for Wei Xiaobei to place it in importance. Being able to foresee danger would allow him to evade the danger and preserve his life. In total, he had used up 700 evolution points to increase his perception to 15 points and his intuition to 14 points. This had increased his awareness to 13.24 points. In truth, following the increase in his perception, Wei Xiaobei's 5 senses became sharper. Wei Xiaobei placed his attention on the ground 5 meters away from him. From that place, he could hear a slight rubbing sound and the sounds of something slowly moving. Wei Xiaobei had even smelled a slight fishy smell from within the wind. This was the scent of the sacred beetle descendant. No. In reality, with Wei Xiaobei at the center, there were 4 sacred beetle descendants that were slowly crawling towards him all in a 30-meter radius. His great spear moved like a rainbow and shot forth. After thrusting a few times in the sand, the 4 sacred beetle descendants that were planning to ambush him had become corpses. As long as Wei Xiaobei noticed them, it was impossible for the sacred beetle descendants to escape him. Wei Xiaobei nodded his head, satisfied in his decision of placing his evolution points into his perception. He placed the great spear on his shoulders and stretched his now healed foot before moving forward. After his perception increased, the path back to his apartment was a lot more relaxed. Every sacred beetle descendant that prepared to ambush him was killed in a single strike. Perhaps due to the heavy stench on him, or perhaps due to the bloodied great spear, the sacred beetle descendants had started to run away from him, opening up his path. Wei Xiaobei did not chase after them. He had a premonition that coveting those evolution points would not be a good thing. Not long after, his gut feeling was proven true. On the slope of a sand dune close by, a ball of flame was currently doing a combination of flying and diving down close to the ground. Under the slope, there was a group of sacred beetle descendants and even a sacred beetle with broken shell bearing their fangs towards the sky. The ball of fire was a scarlet pheasant. Seeing that it had not lost its speed, Wei Xiaobei quickly moved away from it. Even though the scarlet pheasant was injured, there was still the sacred beetle and thousands of sacred beetle descendants around it. If Wei Xiaobei joined the fray, he would probably be immediately surrounded and killed in just a few minutes. This was too dangerous. Even if the benefits were huge, it was impossible for Wei Xiaobei to join the fray. Because of this, he continued on the following path back, and the amount of monsters Wei Xiaobei encountered was not small. The shockwave caused by the fire dragon had sent countless monsters flying everywhere. Some of them were injured, some in perfect condition, and some even died from the fall. However, other than the sacred beetle descendants, Wei Xiaobei would try to move away from other monsters the first instant he saw them. Luckily, Wei Xiaobei did not encounter any great danger as he left the desert. The most dangerous moment was when he found himself being chased by 7 fire crows, but luckily, he was still able to escape from them in the end. Wei Xiaobei left the desert and returned to the streets, and finally relaxed when he saw the familiar buildings. Compared to the danger-filled desert, the safe streets were the best. After getting over the wall and returning to his apartment building, Wei Xiaobei's mood had improved. The time he had left inside the dust world should be more than an hour. After lying down on his bed, he looked at the battle log which he had not looked at for some time. Battle log. 4-star disaster creature, fire dragon, young, turned over. A shockwave with confusion effect was created. 12.95 point willpower decreased effects of confusion. Fire dragon, young. A 4-star disaster creature. The fire dragon just turning over was able to create such a disaster. If it turned over like that in the real world, then it probably would have had the same effect as a small atomic bomb. As for any more information, nothing other than its name showed up even when Wei Xiaobei concentrated on it. However, it was truly terrifying. A fire dragon that had not yet matured was already so powerful, what more would a mature one be? After sighing slightly, Wei Xiaobei trained his breathing techniques and calmed down his mind. Afterwards, he stood beside his bed and formed his stance. His consciousness sunk deep as he focused on his dantian and made the qi circulate. The qi inside his dantian was something that could grow by itself even if he did not train, but its growth would be at a much slower rate. However, even if it was like this, the qi had already become quite strong after a long period of time. With a light nudge, the qi flowed through Wei Xiaobei's blood channels and moved towards the yin jian acupuncture point. In this process, he still felt a bit of pain as the qi passed through the newly opened blood channel. This meant that the blood channel had not yet stabilized, just like how in a newly dredged river, sludge would usually appear at this period of time. This blood channel had just been unblocked, so it was still easy for it to shrink again. If Wei Xiaobei did not send qi in by himself, then the blood channel would close by itself and completely close up again, wasting his effort in opening them. As a result, for a Guoshu expert, circulating their qi every day was something indispensable to their life. Wei Xiaobei was much more diligent during this period, but it was impossible to stabilize it in such a short period of time, so he could only do it bit by bit. After his qi entered the yin jian acupuncture point, it had decreased by more than 20%. The yin jiao acupuncture point was a completely opened acupuncture point, so it was able to produce qi in huge quantities. Moreover, it was able to gather the qi around it. Naturally, compared to the dantian, the yin jiao acupuncture point produced lesser qi. When the qi entered the yin jiao acupuncture point and circulated once, the qi would increase again, and in just a few seconds it returned back to its original state. As Wei Xiaobei urged it forward, it moved towards the next acupuncture point, the Shinkei acupuncture point. The blood channel that Wei Xiaobei was moving on was the Ren channel. In wuxia novels, the Ren channel was something that was widely used. The dantian was also an acupuncture point that was below the navel. The yin jiao acupuncture point was also below the navel but above the dantian. The Shinkei acupuncture point was at the center of the navel. These three acupuncture points were the most common points in acupuncture therapy and were mainly used to cure diarrhea, stomach ache and other illnesses. However, during the process of moving qi through the blood channels, the dantian was the main supply of qi. If the dantian was injured, it would be hard to train in any gong or internal force. Moreover, the Shinkei acupuncture point had the effect of strengthening the body and rejuvenating it. So, it was easy to imagine how important these were. Compared to the flow. From the dantian to the yin jiao acupuncture point, moving qi from the yin jiao acupuncture point to the Shinkei acupuncture point was much more harder. When the qi reached the Shinkei acupuncture point, only less than 30% remained. By slightly nudging the impurities in the Shinchu acupuncture points, the amount of qi had decreased further, turning them back to uncontrollable qi. Afterwards, this uncontrollable qi would once again gather in his dantian. Under Wei Xiaobei's guidance, the qi would again become controllable qi inside it. A strand of qi circled in his dantian and grew back to its original size. Under Wei Xiaobei's urging, the qi once again flowed through his blood channel. This time, the amount of pain from moving to the Yin Jiao acupuncture point had decreased. The qi loss had also decreased. By stopping the qi in the Yin Jian acupuncture point, it had quickly increased again and charged towards the Shen-Ke acupuncture point. The pain Wei Xiaobei had been feeling all throughout this process had made his forehead fill with beads of sweat. He repeatedly moved qi to the acupuncture point and gathered qi, the amount of pain easily exceeding what a normal person could endure. It was no wonder that the amount of people who trained martial arts in the impoverished past was as countless as oxen hair. On the contrary, the abundant modern society had too few people training martial arts. Willpower. Without willpower and patience, no matter how high a person's innate skill was, they would not be able to be successful in martial training. There were already a lot of people who gave up halfway. In current society, wealth was like a greenhouse that had inverted the relationship between the birth rate and death rate. However, this had decreased the modern man's willpower. There were too many examples for this. After circulating qi more than 10 times, the Shen-Ke acupuncture point was cleared of impurities. At this time, a surge of qi flowed into his Shen-Ke acupuncture point and Wei Xiaobei felt as if his abdomen was about to leak. If he had not clenched his butt cheeks tight, something would have probably shot out. Phew! After having his qi circulate 3 times, his consciousness floated back up. Wei Xiaobei lightly sighed. The sleepy feeling had rushed into his mind. Wei Xiaobei frowned as he slowly fell asleep. Fight as we're ordered, do as we're told. The imposing alarm sound had woken Wei Xiaobei up from his slumber. After grasping the phone and turning off the alarm, Wei Xiaobei frowned as he felt something cold in his pants. I shat in my pants. Wei Xiaobei embarrassingly went to the bathroom and did his business. Afterwards, he walked out of the bathroom naked. Wei Xiaobei had already known that this would happen, but when it actually happened, he was caught unaware. Luckily, he was inside his room, so no one else knew. If other people found out about it, he would definitely not be able to show his face around the neighborhood anymore. Wei Xiaobei bound the great spear to his waist and placed the sacred beetle jaw into a paper bag. He opened the door to the hallway and went out. Announcement. Just as he had just walked out the building, the landlord, Li Chaoyang, beaconed him towards where most of the tenants had been gathered. What's going on? Wei Xiaobei walked over and saw that Zhang Tian and Li Lanxing were both there. He could not help but become doubtful. If it was purely increasing the rent, then Li Chaoyang would not simply gather everybody. We also don't know. When Zhang Tian saw Wei Xiaobei, she could not say anything concrete. Only Li Lanxing shook her head and replied. However, Li Xiaoyang did not delay anymore. Seeing that most of the tenants were there, he cleared up his throat and announced, "This building will soon be demolished. I want everyone to prepare in advance and find a new place to live." Before Li Chaoyang finished speaking, the tenants exploded with questions and conversations. Among them, there were those who had paid in advance for a year and others for half a year because the rent was cheap. Moreover, those who were paying monthly were also unwilling to move out. First of all, finding a cheap apartment like this was not easy even in the entire Chuihu city. Second, moving out was troublesome since hiring a moving company would cost at least 200 yuan or more. Who would be the one to pay this money? After being shouted at by the tenants, Li Chaoyang began to slightly panic. Originally, Li Chaoyang was not willing to demolish the building. After all, with 2 apartment buildings under his name, the amount he earned was not small, and he was already used to the place. The developer of the place had also given him such a normal price that was not too high or too low. However, the most important thing was that the developer brought some muscles with him. Li Chaoyang was only a landlord, and since he did not lose anything in this deal, he could only agree to it. It was said that Mr. Wang, the owner of the neighboring apartment was also not willing, and even drove the developer away. In the end, last night, he had been found in a sack, all beaten up to the point that he was unrecognizable. It was also because of this that the greedy Li Chaoyang wanted the tenants to leave in advance. After all, he was not willing to implicate himself just for a few tenants. I will return the rent. I will also provide everyone with 100 yuan to move out. This is already the most generosity that you can get out of me. If you are still not willing, then you go speak with the Hao estates. Their fists are not that simple to mess with. Li Chaoyang pacified the tenants and added in a bit of threat. This had immediately quieted the tenants. Wei Xiaobei did not enter into the argument. From his point of view, the building belonged to Li Chaoyang. Since he was willing to let it go, how could the other tenants change his mind? Moreover, with his current financial power, finding a new place was not difficult. The only problematic thing was whether this would implicate entering the dust world or not. Wei Xiaobei shook his head as he felt an incoming headache. De Hao Real Estate. It's one of the companies under the banner of President Wan. Unless he used extreme measures, Wei Xiaobei could not change the other party's minds. However, once he used extreme measures, the problems that would arise after would not be small. Xiaobei. What are you going to do? Wei Xiaobei felt his shoulders being shaken. He raised his head and saw Li Lanxing. What do you mean by that? Wei Xiaobei was still deep in his thoughts as he blankly looked back at Li Lanxing. Li Chaoyang had said that he would only give us half a month to move out. It would appear that Li Lanxing was not willing to move out. It seemed that she was slightly hesitant, so she was trying to gauge other people's responses. Wei Xiaobei looked at the two women and replied, "This Li Chaoyang is a bit unreasonable, but we have no choice but to move out. Do you know anyone looking for tenants?" Wei Xiaobei was absolutely unwilling to enter the dust world through the Qing clan dojo. It would be too easy to attract his master's and apprentice brother's attention. After all, a person who trained in martial arts had sharper eyes and ears. I know someone. It's my colleague's room. The place is really big, about 250 square feet. There are 4 rooms and 2 living rooms. The interior decor is not bad too, but the price is too high. Li Lanxing frowned. Perhaps she had already known about the matter about the demolition, so she had already started looking at apartments. How much? Wei Xiaobei asked. 1,500 yuan every month. On the contrary, Wei Xiaobei did not think 1,500 yuan as expensive. After all, 250 square feet was not a small. If the place had instead been split into 4 individual rooms, raking in a combined rent of 2,000 yuan was also very possible. Sister Lan, tell your colleague that I want to rent the place. Li Lanxing suddenly went quiet for a moment. Ah, okay. I will go call her. Since she's taking leave today, we can go take a look at the room. Li Lanxing was caught unprepared at Wei Xiaobei's words. In her mind, Wei Xiaobei was an electrician at a real estate company. His monthly salary would only be enough to eat his fill. When did he become so extravagant? Can we rent the place together? If Sister Lan and I live there, we can split the rent. At this time, the bashful Zhang Tian suddenly let out such startling words. She had unexpectedly suggested cohabitating to Wei Xiaobei. Moreover, she had even pulled Li Lanxing in it. In truth, Zhang Tian's words were reasonable. Co-renting a place was already a big trend in Chuihu City. However, the amount of males and females co-renting were too few. After all, it was a bit inconvenient. After staring at Zhang Tian, Li Lanxing muttered, "Little missy, if you want a man, don't pull your sister into it." Her words were full of shyness, yet she still dared to ask this of him. That said, Wei Xiaobei was not opposed to having beauties live with him. After all, just the fragrant air as they come and go was enough to make him feel good mentally. Wasn't there a saying that went, things will be less exhausting for females and males when they work together? With just these words, the three of them decided to live in one place. When Li Lan Xing called her colleague out, what came was a charming 30-year-old married woman. According to Li Lan Xing, she was the company's vice director. However, she had just had a divorce and became unwilling to live in that sad place, so she had renovated it to let others rent it from her. The place was indeed not bad. The place was in a suburban district, but there were security guards and property management. It was 100 times safer than their previous apartment building. Although the room was on the 13th floor of the building, the place had an elevator. The design of the rooms were simple and they had air conditioning, HD television, a front-load washing machine, 3 refrigerators, and other necessities. This made the three of them extremely satisfied. For a room like this, let alone 1,500 yuan, people would even be willing to pay 2,500 yuan for it. If there really had to be a problem, then one could say that the place was too cool, perhaps due to it being a high-rise building. No matter what was said, Wei Xiaobei had already decided to rent the place. He took out bills from his wallet and gave it to the vice director. The vice director was pleased by how straightforward and frank Wei Xiaobei was. She took out the key and gave the real estate office an explanation before leaving the place. There were exactly 3 keys for the three of them. Wei Xiaobei distributed out the keys and at the same time, Li Lan Xing and Zhang Tian gave him the money for the rent. Wei Xiaobei smiled. He took 2 bills and returned them to Li Lan Xing and Zhang Tian. There's no need for this much, just paying 600 yuan for the both of you should be enough. Out of the question. We have already agreed to divide it equally. Li Lan Xing was much more decisive and pushed back the money. Please don't insist any longer. Let me make this clear, I normally won't eat here, but if I were to come back, then just prepare my share. I should also say that I eat a lot. After saying this, he chose a room. Because Wei Xiaobei paid the most, the 2 women decided to give him the master's bedroom with the ensuite. In reality, when Wei Xiaobei entered the master's bedroom, he couldn't help but sneeze. Even his 20 points of health was not enough to stifle it. However, he did not feel the cold at all. This matter was slightly strange. Wei Xiaobei felt a slight danger, but he was not able to find the location of the danger. In a flash, the feeling of danger disappeared as if it never existed to begin with. Before Wei Xiaobei could understand the situation, he had been dragged back by the 2 women to help move their things. Wei Xiaobei's things were the easiest to deal with. He only had a small pot for cooking instant noodles, a few books, 10 changes of clothes, and a few other stuff. As for his computer, it was already back in the dojo. Zhang Tian's and Li Lan Xing's things were mainly clothes and shoes. The clothes were the easiest to deal with since they just need to be carried in a bag. The only thing that was a headache were the boxes of shoes. Naturally, most of them belonged to Li Lan Xing since Zhang Tian was just a new graduate, so it was impossible for her to have this many shoes. Additionally, Zhang Tian had many drafting books and a computer. Li Lan Xing had an air conditioner, a television, a computer, makeup and other things. Seeing the things accumulating in the courtyard, Wei Xiaobei finally decided to call a moving company. With a truck, 4 men carried their stuff to their new home. When they returned back to their new rooms, Wei Xiaobei just procrastinated in arranging his things in order, so he just helped Li Lan Xing install the air conditioner into her room. Li Lan Xing's room had a balcony with good lighting, but there was no air conditioner. The air conditioner that she had brought from her apartment fit perfectly. After helping the 2 women arrange their things, Wei Xiaobei felt slightly worn out. As for the 2 women, they were already lying on the sofa with no indication of budging. For dinner, they decided to go for takeout. Although they had all the usual seasonings in the kitchen, their refrigerators were completely empty. After eating dinner, Wei Xiaobei happily took a bath and comfortably lied down on his bed afterwards. Wei Xiaobei did not plan on going back to the dust world at this moment. There was a cooldown for entering the dust world. Wei Xiaobei had confirmed it over the past 2 months. After leaving the dust world, it was impossible to enter again within 24 hours. At the moment, he was currently observing the inside of his room. His high perception had given him the ability to perceive unusual things that normal people would not be able to. From beginning to end, Wei Xiaobei felt that there was something wrong with his room. The room had the slight scent of the dust world. However, after a long time, he could not find anything substantial, so he gave up. In the morning of the next day, Wei Xiaobei did not wait for the other two to wake up and return back to the dojo. His master was going to visit an old friend today in the neighboring city, Een City, which was 160 kilometers away. His third senior apprentice brother also accompanied his master as his driver. As for his big senior apprentice brother, he had already left the dojo in the morning due to some matters. Adding to the fact that it was not a weekend, there were no students there. As a result, only Wei Xiaobei was left behind in the Qing clan dojo. Wei Xiaobei did not have any complaints about this. On the contrary, he felt relieved. He directly went in the storehouse, turned on the grinding wheel, and began working on the large jaw. The sacred beetle jaw was not as tough as the citizen of Long Bow's leg hair. After an hour, Wei Xiaobei had finished grinding and cutting the jaw, turning it into a machete. Just from looking at the quality, the machete made from the jaw did not seem to be any better than an alloy-made machete. However, it was superior due to the fact that it could be brought into the dust world. Sacred beetle machete, substandard sharpness. The description after it made it clear that its sharpness was a lot more inferior to the white mist knife. However, the benefit of the machete was in dealing with large groups of weak enemies. Bajiquan did not only have fist techniques and spear techniques, there were also blade techniques, and there were quite a lot of them. However, Wei Xiaobei only knew one of Bajiquan's blade techniques. Elevating willow blade. This technique was the skill that started up Bajiquan in Wuzhong. Because this skill was incredibly strong, it was strictly not allowed to be transferred to people outside of Bajiquan, but was also not even taught to normal disciples. In reality, although Cheng Baiwu was a Bajiquan master, he had begun to study Bajiquan since he was a child. Being able to learn this technique was very surprising. As Cheng Baiwu's personal disciple, Wei Xiaobei had also learned of the technique. The only problem was that Wei Xiaobei had placed most of his attention towards spear techniques and fist techniques. He had only remembered the technique, but had never tried it. After placing the final touches on the machete, Wei Xiaobei closed the storehouse door behind him and walked towards the practice grounds. He cupped his fists, composed himself, and began training. With Wei Xiaobei's current Bajiquan level, grasping the blade techniques would not be hard. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The light reflecting off the blade flashed beautifully. Wei Xiaobei tried playing out the entire technique from beginning to end based on his memory. After doing that once, he placed the blade at his side and closed his eyes, replaying it in his mind. Soon, he once again brandished his blade to train. After practicing the sequence a few times, Wei Xiaobei's clumsiness with the blade gradually decreased. By noon, Wei Xiaobei had not yet perfected the technique, but he had become quite adept at it. Wei Xiaobei could already cut a falling leaf with a single slice. After using a clean cloth to wipe the machete clean, he wrapped it up with the same cloth. The machete was around 90 centimeters. It was not long a very long blade nor was it short. However, it was still a weapon, so he could not just strut around with it in the streets. In the end, he had wrapped it up in a few more layers of newspaper, making it in the shape of a stick. Only then did he leave the dojo. When returning to his apartment, he smelled a fragrant scent coming from the kitchen as soon as he opened the door. Hearing the door open, Zhang Tian came out from the kitchen and saw Wei Xiaobei. Her face blushed. "You have returned." Wei Xiaobei naturally liked a beautiful girl like Zhang Tian, but he had his principles. If he was not in a position to reciprocate feelings, then he would try not to make her his. Against reason, Zhang Tian's voice and words currently sounded like a wife welcoming her husband home. This had slightly shaken Wei Xiaobei's mind, immediately giving him a headache. Zhang Tian had even went to help him change his slippers. Wei Xiaobei was slightly unable to endure the passion that arose within him. Wei Xiaobei could only try to imagine it with his mind. If his current position was slightly better, he would have pushed her down the bed regardless of the consequences. However, this was only his imagination. Even if he could truly do it, he still wouldn't do it. Lunch is ready. Where did you run off to? Come set the table and take the dishes. Li Lanxing's slightly flustered voice came from the kitchen and startled Zhang Tian, making he look a little like a rabbit. Despite only having changed one slipper, she immediately ran back to the kitchen. Wei Xiaobei bitterly smiled as he changed the remaining slipper. The slipper was small but new, so it should be ones bought by the girls. When Wei Xiaobei entered the living room, he saw that the two of them were serving the dishes. Xiaobei, you came back. Go get some rice. The bowls are already clean. Seeing Wei Xiaobei, Li Lanxing immediately prompted him with an air of a capable independent woman. After getting the rice and grabbing a pair of chopsticks, the three of them ate at the dining table. Wei Xiaobei was slightly amazed. He originally thought that they were bad at cooking, but he never imagined that they were able to make 3 dishes and 1 soup. They had made pork strips stir-fried with yuxiang, stir-fried bean curd in chili sauce, garlic sautéed water spinach, and tofu soup. This was the classic Sichuan cuisine that was usually cooked at home. This tastes good. Amazing. I couldn't tell at all that the both of you were this skillful. Wei Xiaobei praised and ate without reserve, sampling every dish. The dishes were made by Sister Lan. I only cooked the rice. Zhang Tian did not take all the credit, but instead, her cheeks blushed as she explained. Zhang Tian looked like a girl from a pampered family, being able to cook rice was already not bad. At the very least, it was not half-cooked. Li Lanxing smiled as she tapped Zhang Tian with her chopsticks. What are you explaining for? Hurry up and eat. Didn't you say that you had need to go to work at 2 o'clock? Ah. Right. Zhang Tian did not pay attention to being ladylike anymore. Her table manners could not compare to Wei Xiaobei, but it was a bit like a masculine woman. This had truly opened Wei Xiaobei's eyes. Li Lanxing did not rush while eating. She even had a slight bit of grace while eating. After lunch, the two women quickly returned back to their offices and Wei Xiaobei took on the responsibility of cleaning the dishes. After washing the dishes, he made himself a cup of tea and sat down on the balcony, drinking the tea to aid digestion. The weather was not bad as the sun shone brightly from above. However, it was not at all hot even as the rays shone on his body. The wind blew a warm air, making Wei Xiaobei fall asleep. However, not long after, a few buzzing house flies in the air appeared close to him, and landed on his head. Crackle. Electric current leapt out, shocking the houseflies that had just landed. The houseflies landed on the ground, smoking. Wei Xiaobei opened his eyes with displeasure. Before the houseflies landed on him, they had already awakened him. As a result, those houseflies met with misfortune. Seeing the houseflies that were electrocuted on the ground, Wei Xiaobei frowned. He lightly dipped his index finger and middle finger into the tea. He pulled his fingers out and slowly separated them. In that instant, a blue electric arc jumped up, but as the distance increased, the blue arc disappeared. 483 volts was still too low of an amount. Wei Xiaobei sighed. He needed more evolution points to level up his release electricity ability, his attributes, his Bejiquan, and other abilities. After his intuition had grown, Wei Xiaobei had a slight premonition that the relationship between the dust world and the real world was not that simple. A slight fear came from within him. The pressure this fear gave him spurred him to continue on the path of becoming stronger. Even the physiological needs every normal man had, were weakened due to this pressure. If I further increased my intuition, would I be able to see through the relationship between the two worlds? After thinking about this, Wei Xiaobi felt a bit anxious. He pushed away the chair and stood up while doing his breathing techniques to calm himself down. He looked into his dantian and urged his qi to move through his acupuncture points. The Shinkei acupuncture point was newly opened, so he was not in a hurry to open another. Moreover, as the qi moved through his body, the blood channels had become slightly more stabilized. And then he moved his qi towards the Xia 1 acupuncture point that was 2 inches below the navel. Wei Xiaobei was now experienced, not like before. He planned to first open the blood channel, enlarge it, and stabilize it before opening the acupuncture point. With his experience, it took him just 5 tries to open the path. He stopped his qi in the Xia 1 acupuncture point and stopped training. As he opened more acupuncture points, he felt his mind become clearer every time. After moving his qi, he rarely had any headaches, and the diarrhea side effect from reaching the Xia 1 acupuncture point had decreased. Wei Xiaobei understood this was the result of his blood channel stabilizing. After going to bathroom to get rid of his impurities, Wei Xiaobei returned to his bedroom while looking at the bottles of Chuihu 10-year liquor lined up in his cabinet. He couldn't help let out a bitter smile. As his drinking capacity increased, who knew how much it would take to get him drunk in the future? It was not good to think too much, so Wei Xiaobei just downed 3 bottles of liquor. Then he lied down on the bed and slowly closed his eyes. His mind began to feel dizzy. Wake up! When Wei Xiaobei had regained his mind's clarity, he subconsciously grasped the white mist knife on his waist, while his right hand landed on his great spear. He stretched his body while gathering energy, before slowly opening his eyes. Actually, before he had even opened his eyes, he had already perceived from the smell and his intuition that he was in a safe place. However, after experiencing countless dangers in the dust world, he did not want to let his guard down at all. After all, there were a lot of monsters that could cause illusions. At the very least, Wei Xiaobei had met 2 of them before, the fiendish man-fish and the thousand-eyed devil. Every time he thought back to the thousand-eyed devil, Wei Xiaobei would feel a shiver in his heart. If he had not been able to resist against its illusions, who knew where he would be right now? However, all he was able to confirm was that the ending was not good. When Wei Xiaobei opened his eyes, the place where he appeared at was not the previous apartment building. He had already previously deducted this. His new room was the 250 square meter master's bedroom. The classic style bedroom had changed from its beautiful appearance to a room full of dust. Out of the 3 cabinet doors, 2 had disappeared, while the remaining one was full of webs. The wall lights had also been destroyed. The room's door was tightly shut, trapping the thick layer of dust in the air inside the room. Wei Xiaobei inspected his outfit. The items inside his backpack were all there, while the sacred beetle machete was beside his pillow. At this moment, Wei Xiaobei suddenly heard the strange sound of footsteps from the other side of the door. It was the sound of high heels. Due to the silence of the surroundings, the sound was especially clear. Naturally, this was also thanks to his improved hearing ability. If Wei Xiaobei did not confirm that he was inside the dust world, he would have probably guessed that this was Li Lanxing or Zhang Tian moving about. The footsteps moved closer to his room and suddenly stopped in front of the door. Wei Xiaobei guessed that the other party had stopped, standing right outside his door. In that instant, Wei Xiaobei grabbed his sacred beetle machete and stared at the old but intact door. The thing on the other side of the door could be a woman who was dragged into the dust world or a monster. Wei Xiaobei would never doubt the strange things that would happen inside the dust world. Even if a fishman wearing high heels and makeup appeared in front of him, he would not think of it as strange. However, the thing that happened next made the hair on Wei Xiaobei's back stood up. Clack clack, clack clack. The sound of high-heeled shoes once again echoed in the silence, but this time, Wei Xiaobei could hear that the footsteps were not coming from the outside. The sound of the footsteps had passed through the door. Clack clack. With just 2 steps, the footsteps moved to less than 3 meters from Wei Xiaobei. However, there was no one in front of him. Other than the smell of the dust, there had been no other smell. Although he could hear the sound of footsteps, other than that, there was nothing else, not even the sound of breathing, a heartbeat, or even the sound of friction between skin and shirt. The sound of footsteps seemed to have been coming from nothing. Wei Xiaobei tightened his grip on the machete. In the next instant, he brandished his machete out of its wrap. However, without even knowing if the owner of the footsteps existed or not, he did not know how to attack. The sound of footsteps stopped once again. When he closed his eyes, he was able to guess that the origin of the sound seemed to currently be looking at something. Could it be looking at me? Wei Xiaobei felt his toughened mental state instantly crumble. Clack clack. Clack clack. The sound of footsteps continued but headed towards the makeup table on the corner. The white makeup table in the real world had good craftsmanship. It even had a big makeup mirror, fake diamonds inlaid all around it. Perhaps because there were not many things left, the vice director landlord did not take it away. Wei Xiaobei himself even ignored it and left it there. In the dust world, the makeup table was in the style of the dust world. It was heavily damaged, and the white color had been turned to yellow. The material had already degraded so much that it should have been directly thrown into the trash. These were not the important points. The sound of footsteps stopped in front of the makeup table. Afterwards, the small stool was pulled out from under the table and the lipstick that was covered in dust started floating in mid-air, seeming as if it was grabbed by someone, and made movements as if it was being applied. Could it be invisibility? No. If it was invisibility, then there were many things that could not be covered up. From Wei Xiaobei's perception, he should be able to tell the weight of the person just from the sound of their footsteps. However, Wei Xiaobei could not perceive anything at all. After forcefully calming himself, Wei Xiaobei gritted his teeth and closed in. After he closed in, he stared at the makeup mirror. What he saw shocked him. The mirror that should not be showing anything was now showing a long-haired, red-clothed woman. In the mirror, the woman was holding onto the lipstick and applying it onto her lips. Her lips were red, but her facial features were strangely unseeable as if it was covered by a mist. In this period of time, the shock that Wei Xiaobei had experienced had reached the limit. He could not stop his body's impulse, used the machete in his right hand, and chopped towards the long-haired, red-clothed woman. It could clearly be seen from the mirror that when the machete was about to come down on the long-haired, red-clothed woman, her hair suddenly spread out, exposing a delicate face with a strange smile. The machete hit the air and chopped the makeup mirror. Clink clank. The sound of glass breaking echoed in the room. The mirror was chopped in half by the machete and broke into pieces, creating a crisp noise as the glass shards dropped to the floor. In the remaining half of the mirror, the long-haired, red-clothed woman had disappeared. With a bang, the machete fell on the floor. Although he could not see the long-haired, red-clothed woman, he knew that the strange existence had left. Following its disappearance, Wei Xiaobei's tense nerves relaxed and sat on the ground, losing control of his own body. Even his eyelids did not budge as he sat there like a mummy. After being in this state for a long time, Wei Xiaobei felt that something was wrong. With his vitality, something like that would not happen. At this time, Wei Xiaobei's consciousness sunk within him as he entered the state of inner sight. Although Wei Xiaobei did not know why this happened, since he could not move his body, he could only let his qi circulate around his blood channels. What amazed Wei Xiaobei was that his qi had become difficult to control. The qi that flowed in his blood channels had also become a lot slower. However, after a single cycle, the numb feeling all over his body had slightly disappeared. After a total of 3 cycles, he was happy to find out that he had regained control over his own body. Although the numbness was still there, it was a lot better than being unable to move. Why did this happen? Wei Xiaobei did not know if the long-haired, red-clothed woman was still roaming around outside. So instead of leaving the room, he looked at his status panel. Soon, he paid attention to the battle log which he had completely forgotten about. Battle log. You encountered an indescribably strange existence. Unable to inspect the opponent's strength. Unable to perceive the opponent's existence. You attacked. You received intimidation counterattack. Your willpower failed to defend the attack. Your body become rigid. You circulated qi. Decrease in rigid effect. You circulated qi. Decrease in rigid effect. You circulated qi. Decrease in rigid effect. Rigid state disappeared. Seeing this, Wei Xiaobei became secretly surprised. Wei Xiaobei did not know where the status panel came from, what it really was, why it had appeared in his mind, and why it was able to tell him his own status. However, there was something he could acknowledge. The status panel was godlike. However, there was something that did not register properly in the battle log. This was truly strange. Moreover, Wei Xiaobei's willpower, that he had been so proud of, had actually lost against this strange existence. This had slightly injured his pride. Luckily, Wei Xiaobei was not a weak and cowardly person. He continued to ponder about this situation as light returned back into his eyes. When he and the strange long-haired, red-clothed woman touched, he could not tell what it was, but it was not something he had ever seen before. Moreover, Wei Xiaobei could not tell whether it was evil or good. This point had a huge effect on his next actions. After all, Wei Xiaobei had tried to chop it at once and saw her face. Moreover, it had even counterattacked, leaving Wei Xiaobei in a rigid state. Could it be that she just ignored me? Wei Xiaobei could not tell if it was good or bad, because if it were bad, it would have just killed him when he was in that rigid state. However, Wei Xiaobei had second thoughts. What if it was simply unable to touch anything? Wei Xiaobei derived this possibility from the fact that he could not perceive its presence. However, he immediately questioned himself. If it was unable to touch things, then where did the sound of footsteps come from? Could it be an illusion? In the end, Wei Xiaobei sat there for more than 10 minutes with his mind swimming everywhere. Various guesses surged like a tide in his head, but were immediately overthrown by himself. Wei Xiaobei only stopped thinking about it when his mind began to hurt. He rubbed the vein popping out of his head and felt warm. Wei Xiaobei had been a bit overwhelmed, but he was still able to get over it quickly. If he had continued thinking, he might have turned into an idiot from overthinking. Huge amounts of information had been processed by his brain, resulting in a little bit of overheating. Wei Xiaobei took out a bottle of water and splashed his face, making him sober up. I should not stay here. Wei Xiaobei understood this. With a strange existence like that, he might be startled to death if it came back again. Moreover, he could not just stay there for a long time. He did not come to the dust world to sleep after all. Thinking about this, Wei Xiaobei wore his backpack while holding the machete in his right hand as he slowly walked towards the door. After a slight hesitation, Wei Xiaobei placed his ear on the door. In reality, he was worried that some sound would suddenly come from behind the door. Luckily, he did not hear anything after carefully listening. Wei Xiaobei did not recklessly open the door. He retreated a bit and walked towards the window. Then he pulled open the curtains. The building had 35 floors. In the residence district of Chuihu City, the building could be considered as a high-rise. Moreover, Wei Xiaobei's room was on the 13th floor. However, when Wei Xiaobei opened curtains, he appeared stunned. What he never imagined, was that when he opened the window, the scenery was extremely different from reality. The scene outside looked familiar. There was a water fountain 10 meters away from the window. After careful inspection, he deducted that this place was the downtown plaza. When he looked downwards, he saw the flat cemented ground just outside the window. In the dust world, his room was actually on the first floor. Wei Xiaobei hesitated. He thought for a bit and then took a bottle of perfume from the makeup table, tossing it outside. Clank. The perfume landed on the cement ground and broke into pieces, letting out a fragrant scent. This really is the first floor. Wei Xiaobei did not hesitate anymore. He held onto the window sill with his left hand and jumped out. When he landed on the hard cement ground, he finally let out a sigh of relief. Although the sky was still a dull gray, it was still better than staying in that strange room. Going outside had uplifted his mood a lot. At the very least, he did not have to worry about suddenly hearing the terrifying sound of footsteps. After turning around to take a look, he could not help stare blankly. His room that was originally on the 13th floor had suddenly become a building near downtown Plaza Fountain. Moreover, Wei Xiaobei was familiar with the appearance of the building. It was the apartment that he had been living in for the past year. Although the window had changed, the entire structure was the same. The familiar appearance of the building made him sweat. What is happening here? Is this part of the strangeness of the dust world? Or does this have something to do with the strange footsteps? Wei Xiaobei felt his head ache. However, he quickly turned his attention away from the apartment building. The sound of someone asking for help came from afar. This is the sound of a person. This sound feels familiar. Wei Xiaobei psyched himself up and charged towards where the sound was coming from. Compared to the strange building, the familiar sound was without a doubt more in Wei Xiaobei's head. In the downtown plaza, other than the apartment building, there had been no huge changes. In simpler terms, the fountain was full of holes and the business buildings around the place were wreckages, but other than that, there were no changes. The sound was coming from the pedestrian street at the side of Chuehu department store. After determining the direction, he quickly moved towards the sound with the fastest speed possible. The plaza was not considered big. At first, Chuehu City's urban district was already not big, but after gradual development, they had built the Chuehu Central Gardens beside it, turning the place into a downtown plaza. As a result, the entire plaza did not exceed 80 meters in diameter. The building that Wei Xiaobei came out from was around 20 meters from the edge of the plaza. Wei Xiaobei quickly walked 3 strides and made it to the pedestrian street. When he looked over, a fat youth was on the street, currently panting heavily as he ran towards Wei Xiaobei's direction. Around 10 meters behind him, there was a group of zombies chasing after him. Compared to the zombies from Chuehu University, the zombies chasing after the youth was much faster. At the very least, they were almost at a normal human's jogging speed. Moreover, the fat youth seemed to have run quite far and was about to lose strength. Wei Xiaobei carefully looked and couldn't help but shout, "Huang Kuan." It was indeed Huang Kuan, the junior high student who came to train in the Qing clan dojo during summer break. Along with Wang Bocheng, Zhang Yulong, the 3 of them made up the dojo's most hard-working students. Because they were hard-working, Wei Xiaobei had been fond of the 3 of them. It was especially so for Huang Kuan. Although he had been spoilt by his parents to the point of fattening him up, he was likable and good with words. Most of the people in the dojo were fond of him, resulting in him being nicknamed Chubby Huang. Big Brother Wei. Big Brother Wei, save me. Hearing Wei Xiaobei's voice, Huang Kuan raised his head and shouted with relief when he saw Wei Xiaobei. However, because of this shout, he had let out the tension keeping his mind together and incidentally weakened his tired legs. Huang Kuan, who heard the footsteps of the zombies behind him, shouted again in fear. Seeing this scene, Wei Xiaobei rushed forward. Energy surged into his legs, and in just 2 strides he crossed a 20-meter distance. At the same time, with the machete in his right hand, he hacked down on a zombie who was about to bite Huang Kuan's neck in half. He grasped Huang Kuan with his left hand, and pulled him back. He ignored Huang Kuan's startled voice and threw him backwards. "Chubby, hide far away." Before his voice came out, Wei Xiaobei immediately readied his machete again and seized the opportunity to dive into the group of zombies. Although the zombies were faster than the zombies back then, Wei Xiaobei was also not the same as back then. Wei Xiaobei swung his blade like a fierce tiger coming down from the mountain, with a single swing cutting off 2 to 3 zombie heads at a time. In just 3 slashes, the zombies closest to him had all fallen on the ground, clearing up more space. After opening the space, Wei Xiaobei's blade moved even more skillfully. The blade moved like the wind as it chopped down on zombie after zombie. While hacking the zombies, Wei Xiaobei still had energy to look at his status panel. The zombies were still normal 1-star creatures, giving him 8 evolution points per head. However, even if they were faster, their bodies were weaker. Every time Wei Xiaobei hacked down, he could not feel any resistance at all. This might have been the case when comparing them to his strength, but the zombies also had weaker bodies. However, there were too many of them. There were more than 700 of them. Even if he could kill 2 to 3 per slash, he would still not be able to kill them all in such a short period of time. Because the zombies continued to surge forwards, Wei Xiaobei had to put his machete to full use. However, some zombies also moved past Wei Xiaobei's left and right, heading towards Huang Kuan who had still remained close by, cheering for Wei Xiaobei. "Big brother Wei, save me." Although Huang Kuan had the energy to cheer Wei Xiaobei on, his legs had already weakened to the point that he could no longer continue run away. Wei Xiaobei's eyes had caught onto this scene. He did not dare tangle with the zombies anymore and retreated. He then turned his blade on the other direction, hacking the 2 zombies that were charging towards Huang Kuan. Afterwards, Wei Xiaobei charged towards Hunag Kuan's side, grabbed him with this left hand, and carried him on his shoulders. His eyes flashed as he observed the surroundings. Seeing that the plaza was a bad place for a defensive battle, he could only hope that going into the department store would block the zombies' attacks. Thinking like this, Wei Xiaobei charged towards the department store. The shutter on the department store was currently closed, but Wei Xiaobei did not stop moving. He hacked at the shutter and made the shape of a cross. Afterwards, he concentrated all his energy in his left shoulders and knocked against the shutter. With a tearing sound, the old shutter could not endure the impact and the cross-shaped cut tore open, sending Wei Xiaobei inside. However, Wei Xiaobei never expected that there were rusted iron clothes racked behind the shutter. This time, his Iron Mountain lean had almost turned Wei Xiaobei into Swiss cheese. Huang Kuan had already been shocked to the point that he could not speak. Even when Wei Xiaobei placed him on the ground, he was still unable to say anything. Wei Xiaobei did not have the time to comfort him, but he slapped Huang Kuan on the face. Even though Wei Xiaobei had not used much strength, because Huang Kuan was weak, it had still left a bright red palm mark on his face. "Go upstairs while still staying within my vision." Wei Xiaobei spoke and kicked the clothes rack. Creak. The ear-piercing sound of the friction occurring from metal immediately echoed. The iron racks acted like a fire truck as they were sent towards the shutter. At this time, the zombies that had already entered the torn shutter, were hit by the clothes rack. In an instant they had been turned into hot dogs on a stick. Finally, when the iron racks hit the shutter, it had pushed back the zombies and got stuck at the opening. Wei Xiaobei observed his surroundings and shook his head. The department store was too spacious. Although it had a checkout counter, it would not be able to block the zombies at all. At this time, the zombies outside caused an ear-piercing sound as they refused to give up, and tried to tear the iron rack apart. The zombies were quite strong. Although they were uncoordinated and sometimes even hindered each other, they were still able to slowly push away the iron rack. Wei Xiaobei turned around and walked up the escalator. There was currently no electricity, but the narrow escalator did not affect his speed at all. In just a few steps, he had reached the second floor. At this time, Huang Kun appeared with an emergency hatchet in hand and hid to the side of the escalator. He was trembling while looking down on the ground. What Huang Kun never imagined was that Wei Xiaobei had actually feigned an attack on him. Because he did not see clearly, Huang Kun immediately chopped down. Naturally, it was impossible for Wei Xiaobei to be hit by it. His left hand moved smoothly and swiftly, seizing away the hatchet. Ah! Big Brother Wei! Huang Kun finally saw him clearly. However, he slightly blushed as he thought about how he almost injured Wei Xiaobei. There was no weight on the hatchet. It seems that you have gotten lazy after the summer break. Wei Xiaobei berated him and pulled him up towards the third floor. Huang Kun had been pulled by Wei Xiaobei, but he became a lot calmer. When he recalled how Wei Xiaobei imposingly massacred the zombies, Huang Kun's eyes were full of reverence. While he was in the dojo, Huang Kun had revered Wei Xiaobei as an instructor whose moves he could not see. However, Huang Kun now had been completely overcome. Using his own words, Big Brother Wei was too strong and too domineering. The amount of places that could block the zombies inside the department store were not many, but they existed. For example, the path to the toilets from the third floor onwards was narrow and long, so the zombies could only move in one by one. However, Wei Xiaobei was bringing Huang Kun with him, so he did not dare take any chances. They charged towards the 8th floor as he thought of a way to scatter the zombies. Chuihu department store was only 10 floors high. The 10th floor was the office and the 9th floor was a warehouse. The 8th floor was the last level customers could access. Other than a few clothes racks and models on this floor, most of the merchandise were worn out. However, when they passed by the 4th floor, Wei Xiaobei encountered a pleasant surprise. The 4th floor was men's apparel, so there were a lot of clothes. Although the clothes were worn out, they were all still a lot better than what he was currently wearing. However, it was impossible for him to stop and search for clothes at this time, so he decided to do it later. When they reached the 8th floor, Wei Xiaobei finally took Huang Kun down from his shoulder. By the 5th floor, Huang Kun could not catch up anymore, so Wei Xiaobei had no choice but to carry him. Wei Xiaobei was simply not willing to hide in the corridor to the toilet. If it had been like that, Wei Xiaobei would become trapped if the zombies all rushed towards him. Naturally, he was not afraid of the zombies. Although 700 was a big number, he could kill them all if he did it slowly. However, Wei Xiaobei was afraid that a licker might appear. Lickers had the ability to freely move through ceilings and had strong jumping ability. They even had their quick tongues, which would be hard for Wei Xiaobei to defend against while fighting the wave of zombies. All in all, the result of this might be Huang Kun losing his life. Wei Xiaobei would not accept this result. The people Wei Xiaobei had previously met were strangers or people who were hostile to him. He did not care or even feel guilty if these people died. However, a familiar child like Huang Kun gave him the feeling that he needed to safely bring them out of the dust world. As a result of thinking for a while, Wei Xiaobei guarded one of the escalators, while he dispatched Huang Kun to the other one. Huang Kun was a bit afraid, but he had no choice but to go. They had already agreed that if Huang Kun saw a zombie coming up the escalator, he would immediately run back. Other than 2 escalators, there were 2 emergency exits at both ends of the floor. However, as long as the zombies were not lured there, they would not use them while ignoring the main escalator. Wei Xiaobei stuck close to the escalator and looked down through the crack. For Wei Xiaobei, a few floors distance could not affect his sight. However, because the crack was narrow, the amount of things he could see was limited to just the escalator. However, even if that was the case, Wei Xiaobei could see that the zombies were currently scattered on the 1st floor. Naturally, there were also zombies who were also heading up to the 2nd floor. However, because of their body posture, climbing up an escalator was a lot harder for them compared to a normal person. As they climbed up, large amount of zombies fell down. Only a few lucky zombies had climbed up the second floor. Seeing this scene, Wei Xiaobei schemed. He planned to go down and take this chance to massacre them. However, Wei Xiaobei looked at Huang Kun on the other escalator, and could not help but shake his head. With Huang Kun there, he did not dare to go too far away. The correlation between the zombies' movements and numbers was like a pyramid. From the second floor, the amount of zombies that were climbing up had decreased once again. As Wei Xiaobei looked at the zombies' climbing speed, it would take them more than half an hour to climb up to the 8th floor. As a result, he called Huang Kun back to his side and made a makeshift alarm with the clothes rack, placing it on the 2 escalators. As long as the zombies climbed up and hit the clothes rack, then the clothes rack would fall down the escalator and hit the level below, creating a huge sound to alarm them. Naturally, only Wei Xiaobei made it, while Huang Kun observed on the side. After finishing their preparations, Wei Xiaobei brought Huang Kun to continue upwards. When they were on the 9th floor, Wei Xiaobei had a headache as he looked at the heavily locked warehouse doors. The warehouse doors were only made of normal steel doors, but if Wei Xiaobei wanted to open them, the amount of sound he would create would be enough to attract the zombies' attention. If there were a few lickers inside the warehouse, things would also get uglier. After circling the 9th floor a few times and observed the place, Wei Xiaobei thought of a plan to use the ventilation ducts. As a large department store, the air conditioning should come from a central air conditioning system. Moreover, if the central air conditioning system generated cold air, it needed to pass through every room in every floor. This was also the reason why spies in movies would mostly use the ventilation ducts to move through rooms. As an electrician, Wei Xiaobei was not a stranger to this. With a jump, Wei Xiaobei had caught onto the ventilation duct that was slightly protruding from the ceiling. With a light twist, the metal bars from the duct were pulled down. Afterwards, Wei Xiaobei told Huang Kun a few things, passed him the backpack, and climbed into the ventilation duct like a monkey. At this time, Wei Xiaobei noticed that having a bigger body size was not a good thing. As he moved through the ventilation duct, it was easy for him to get stuck on turns and narrow places. This was especially so when the great spear was still wrapped around his waist and the machete still in his right hand. Naturally, this was not a problem for Wei Xiaobei. The only thing was that the worn-out ventilation duct had been further destroyed by him. A few dents appeared on the places he had a hard time on. Some places had even been directly torn by him. Wei Xiaobei quickly reached one of the warehouse. After he jumped down the ventilation duct, he saw that the room was filled with durable plastic bags. Wei Xiaobei pulled out his dagger and cut open a bag. When he opened it, there were more than 10 pieces men's clothing inside. Wei Xiaobei could not help but smile when he saw this. Moreover, the contents were Adidas sportswear that came in matching sets. Wei Xiaobei searched for his size and immediately changed his clothes. At the very least he did not look like a savage now. Compared to the clothes that he had previously bought from a stall, these 1,700 to 1,800 yuan sports clothes were much more durable. He wore the clothes that tightly fitted him, but gave no resistance to his movements at all. After changing clothes, Wei Xiaobei walked towards the wall of the warehouse and hacked down with his machete. Warehouses like this were not completely constructed with cement. They were only made with a special alloy with insulating foam outside. It was useful against thieves, but it was nothing in front of Wei Xiaobei. With a single chop, the wall had been torn. After a few more chops, Wei Xiaobei lightly kicked it, creating a human-sized hole. Wei Xiaobei walked forward to another warehouse. He looked around and found out that it was the warehouse for women's apparel. Moreover, a few of the clothes were decayed. Next, Wei Xiaobei followed the pattern and moved through the warehouses. He had found a few good things. Nike shoes. Wei Xiaobei made one of the clothes into a rag and wiped his feet. Then he wore a pair of socks and then the shoes. He jumped and felt that they were not bad. He wore a pair of branded sunglasses and looked at himself in the mirror, feeling that he looked cool. After busying himself for a while, he suddenly stopped. He bitterly smiled at realizing how selfish he was. Perhaps because he had suddenly found a lot of things in the dust world, his commoner mindset had urged him to bring anything useful. However, after think a bit, there was no use for them even if he brought a lot back to his room. If he truly needed them, he could just come back since no one would probably damage them. Even if someone came, they would only be able to take a few things. After thinking about this, he came to the warehouse door. The warehouse door was a lot easier to open from the inside than the outside. After opening the door halfway, it did not budge anymore since it was locked by iron chains. Wei Xiaobei stuck out the machete on the crack and chopped down. With a crisp sound, the iron chains broke apart. After opening the door, Huang Kun, who was anxiously waiting outside, was startled. Seeing Wei Xiaobei, he was about to shout, but immediately closed his mouth as he recalled the zombies downstairs. If he shouted, he could attract the living dead downstairs. "Come here," Wei Xiaobei signaled. Huang Kun eagerly ran over. When he saw Wei Xiaobei's current appearance, he said, "Big brother Wei, you look cool. You look even cooler than Chris from Resident Evil." Chris. Wei Xiaobei knew that Resident was a game and also a movie, but he did not know who Chris was, so he asked further. The following question Huang Kun asked made Wei Xiaobei begin to doubt himself from then on. "Big brother Wei, aren't you too old school?" As it turned out, ever since the start of the new term, cinemas in Chuihu City had been showing the science fiction flick, Resident Evil. Because there was a game that had already existed and many famous celebrities were involved, many young people and students all went to watch it. For the moment, those who had not seen the flick were called old school. This made Wei Xiaobei feel like he had a faint grasp at something. He felt that there was some kind of relation between this and the dust world, but the proper reasoning was still hard to make out. After thinking a bit, Wei Xiaobei temporarily gave up getting to the bottom of it. He just let Huang Kun enter the warehouse and pick a few clothes. While escaping together, Wei Xiaobei had previously noticed that Huang Kun's clothes already had a huge tear. Since there were a lot of clothes there was no need to feign humility. Although Huang Kun's family was well off, it was the first time he saw so many clothes. He could not help but call out, "Big brother Wei, are all these clothes for me? This is the best." In the end, Huang Kun was still a child. He had been scared witless previously, but he was able to quickly recover. Wei Xiaobei could not help but scold him with a smile, "Hurry up, how many can you wear anyway? If you don't hurry up, the zombies below are going to come up." These threatening words were better than anything else he could have said. When he heard Wei Xiaobei, Huang Kun's back was immediately filled with cold sweat. He hurriedly found a set of clothes and shoes. After changing into them, he returned to Wei Xiaobei. Wei Xiaobei did not let Huang Kun go guard the other escalator anymore, and instead, both of them returned back to the first escalator. When he looked down, he saw that the zombies were still moving upwards, and they were currently on the 6th floor. Seeing this, Wei Xiaobei was a bit worried. After all, a high-class zombie like the liquor did not let out any sound when moving. If it truly hid in the department store, things would be bad. With Wei Xiaobei's current perception, it would still be difficult to find a liquor that had just entered the building. After thinking about this, he inspected his evolution points that had reached 430 points. "Huang Kun, wait for me here." After Wei Xiaobei said this, he lightly pressed on the rubber handrail and jumped on it, and then charged downwards. His footsteps were so light that it did not attract the zombies' attention at all. In an instant, Wei Xiaobei had reached the 4th floor. Seeing that Wei Xiaobei came down, the zombies that were crowding around the 4th floor escalator let out a low groan. They extended their hands, attempting to catch Wei Xiaobei. Wei Xiaobei somersaulted over the zombies. With a single chop of the machete, a zombie's head had been cut in half, causing its black blood to splatter out. Without waiting for the zombies to turn around, he took advantage of this moment to swing his machete. The machete passed through the necks of 2 zombies, sending their heads flying. The 10 zombies that were crowding the escalator were killed off by Wei Xiaobei in less than 30 seconds. This was how powerful a Guoshu expert was in a real battle. If Wei Xiaobei did not think about whether the possibilities that the zombies were infected by a powerful virus, he would have been able to quickly kill the zombies at a faster time. After cleaning up the zombies crowding around the escalator, Wei Xiaobei was not greedy. His foot left the ground and headed back up while walking the handrail. After repeating this a few more times, Wei Xiaobei returned back to the 8th floor. After stopping Huang Kun from speaking with his hand, Wei Xiaobei looked at his evolution points that had reached 534 points. This should be enough. Wei Xiaobei placed his attention on his perception attribute and quickly used up his evolution points to increase his perception attribute. 15.01, 15.02, 15.0320. When it had reached 20 points, Wei Xiaobei felt his brain assaulted by a fierce rumble. His mind immediately blanked out as if time had stopped. After who knows how long, Wei Xiaobei's mind shook again. He suddenly noticed that he seemed to have something like clairvoyance. He was able to perceive the entire department store and even buildings further away. He could sense the zombies that were moving around, the broken faucet on the 2nd floor toilet, the broken belt under the 3rd floor escalator. He could even sense the 2 cars that were crashed into each other under the parking lot of the neighboring building. As long as he concentrated hard, nothing in a 1,000-meter radius would be able to escape his perception. After a long while, Wei Xiaobei finally came back to his senses, but his face was still showing a dazed expression. The state he entered into was too captivating. He felt like an omniscient god who could perceive anything 1,000 meters away. His judgment was not wrong at all. Increasing his perception to 20 points was truly a useful thing. Response search. This was the ability that he had gained after increasing his perception to 20 points. With this ability, it would be hard for any monster to ambush him. The only problem was that the side effect of this ability was a huge consumption of his mental energy. After rubbing his head, Wei Xiaobei sighed. Anything in this world had a price. Even if he paid the required evolution points, he still needed to give extra payment. However, other than his newly added ability, his 20 points in perception had allowed him to perceive sound, light, vibrations, smell and many other things from the outside world. In simpler terms, although this ability to perceive information from the outside was weaker than the response search ability, it would still allow him to find the enemy's existence. In reality, Wei Xiaobei was slightly in regret after using his ability. He thought about the building that he used to enter the dust world. Although this ability was strong, he did not know if he could use it to find the strange footsteps. However, Wei Xiaobei had a slight premonition that if he used this ability to find the strange footsteps, he would not be satisfied with the result. As Wei Xiaobei was thinking, he heard Huang Kun's voice. "Big brother Wei, are you alright?" Huang Kun hesitated when he saw Wei Xiaobei just standing there after returning. In the end, he chose to speak up. "I'm fine," Wei Xiaobei said, as he came back to his senses. Seeing that nothing was wrong with Wei Xiaobei, Huang Kun spilled out the words that he wanted to say. "Your skills are so amazing. Can you teach me how to kill these zombies?" "Oh. I can, but it depends on how brave you are." Wei Xiaobei smiled at Huang Kun. Huang Kun was not a bad student in the dojo. When he tried a few Bajiquan techniques, his appeared close to the actual form. However, he was only a junior high school student. His body was not that tall, and he did not have any real battle experience. As for his skill, he was not even close to Wei Xiaobei's level when Wei Xiaobei began learning. Wei Xiaobei originally planned to protect him until they left the dust world. However, Wei Xiaobei then thought about how the boy had even entered the dust world in the first place. And then, He thought about what would happen if he entered again. He could not always protect him. He had to teach the boy how to protect himself. Before anything else, how did you come here? Wei Xiaobei thought about it and immediately asked. Huang Kun finally responded. Seeing his big brother Wei's appearance, he guessed that he had been here for a long time. His big brother Wei was not afraid of the zombies at all, which made him endlessly admire him. I was playing games at home, and then suddenly I was in here. Huang Kun told Wei Xiaobei his experience in a low voice. Originally, Huang Kun became extremely interested with Resident Evil after watching the movie. As a result, he downloaded the game and played it for a few nights. Today was a Friday. It was self-study time in the afternoon, so he immediately returned home to play the game. He controlled the beautiful female protagonist and killed zombies everywhere in the game. After playing until he was tired, he rubbed his dry eyes and the next moment he suddenly entered this terrifying place. After hearing this, Wei Xiaobei understood that the way for Huang Kun to enter the dust world had been through playing games. Moreover, the place he entered the dust world was the same in reality, Huang Kun's home. After entering the dust world, he initially thought that he was dreaming when he was his dust-filled room. After understanding that he was not in a dream, the fatty became extremely frightened. When he came out of his home, he immediately saw a few swaying zombies. Without a doubt, this made him remember the movie that he had seen. After seeing the movies and playing the games, he began to delude himself that he had become the protagonist who carried weapons to kill these zombies. He would save the people and become a superhero by the end. Once in a while, every child would dream their own version of becoming a hero. There were those that thought of piloting a fighter plane in the skies, some thought of carrying guns and charging into a battlefield, some thought of piloting a spaceship to fight against alien invaders. In short, Huang Kun's dream was normal. When he was so close to his dream, he had forgotten his fear about the zombies. He picked up a rotten wooden stick and charged towards a zombie. His dream was beautiful, but the ending was terrifying. Huang Kun endured the disgusting stick and hit the zombie on its back. After making the zombie stagger, it immediately turned around and charged at Huang Kun. After seeing it face to face, Huang Kun saw the zombie's shocking appearance face to face. The zombie's ash-gray eyeball was about to fall out from its eye sockets. Its face was deathly pale and rotting. Its mouth had yellow and black teeth and a maggot appeared from the inside. Ah! In reality, the zombies inside the movies and games were terrifying, but there was still a huge difference compared to real zombies. No matter how big his guts were, Huang Kun was only a junior high student, a 14-year-old. In the short amount that he lived, let alone a real zombie, he had never even seen the rotting corpse of an animal. It was easy to imagine how terrified he was when he saw the zombie's disgusting face. He shouted in fear, turned around and ran for his life. As a result, the 700-strong zombie group was attracted to his shout. In the end, he ran for who knows how long and encountered Wei Xiaobei. Combining this method with the way Huang Dejun entered the dust world, Wei Xiaobei was able to discover that there were differences between how people entered the dust world. If he wanted to truly understand the dust world, it would be a difficulty beyond just difficult. After listening to Huang Kun's experience, Wei Xiaobei thought for a bit and decided to bring Huang Kun down to give him evolution points. Moreover, he wanted to see what kind of changes would happen if someone other than him killed the zombies. When those zombies had scattered in the department store, their density had decreased. For Wei Xiaobei, killing all of them now was an easy thing to do. As long as a liquor did not appear, Wei Xiaobei would have no problem in keeping Huang Kun alive. In a moment, you will observe how I kill the zombies first. Do you understand? Wei Xiaobei told him this and then took the lead to go down the escalator. On the other hand, Huang Kun held on to the emergency hatchet and carefully followed behind. The grave look on his face made it seem as if he was holding on to a bomb. The zombies in the 6th floor were the least out of all the floors. Wei Xiaobei had intentionally left them alone. Right now, there were only 5 zombies roaming around the floor. Killing them would not give Wei Xiaobei much evolution points, so he decided to leave them for Huang Kuan. If Huang Kuan did not take the initiative to mention this, Wei Xiaobei would have brought up the topic. Ha! Wei Xiaobei moved towards a zombie and shouted in a low voice. His voice just loud enough to only attract that zombie's attention. Its body stopped for a moment, and then moved towards the direction of the escalator. Because he wanted to demonstrate things to Huang Kuan, Wei Xiaobei intentionally slowed down his movements. When the zombie was 5 meters away from him, Wei Xiaobei moved to the side and kicked the side of the zombie. Then he took advantage of the moment to chop at its neck. However, the strength he used was not huge as he controlled it to be at the level of a junior high schooler. As a result, the blade only left a deep wound on the zombie's neck. The zombie that had been injured did not flinch at all. Instead it turned around and tried to grab Wei Xiaobei. Wei Xiaobei did not stop moving. He immediately circled the zombie and chopped at its neck again. And then after another turn, the third slash was sent out, chopping the zombie's head off. Wei Xiaobei then stepped on the zombie's head and looked at Huang Kuan with a smile. Did you see it clearly? I saw it clearly. Huang Kuan at first slightly trembled, but he felt that he sounded humiliating, so he immediately loudened his voice. A zombie from afar heard the sound and moved towards them. Go. It's very easy. It's as easy as practicing fighting sequences. Right, just imagine that it is a moving wooden pillar. Wei Xiaobei patted Huang Kuan's head and spoke. Naturally, he did not forget to give him a push. Seeing that the zombie was coming over, it would be a lie to say that Huang Kuan was not scared. However, he admired the big brother Wei who was looking on from behind him, so how could he let him down? A second-year junior high student's hot-bloodedness and impulsiveness should not be looked down upon. Although this kind of hot-bloodedness and impulsiveness could often cause unnecessary injuries and even losses in the real world, it was now helping Huang Kuan move properly. As he thought about this, Huang Kuan's hot-bloodedness reached the top of his head as he hypnotized himself into thinking that the zombie was a moving wooden pillar. Huang Kuan charged ahead and mimicked Wei Xiaobei's moves. He rushed up to the zombie's side as he cut towards its neck with the emergency hatchet. Because he was still nervous, the hatchet had instead chopped the zombie's arm. The zombie's arm was already rotten. When the hatchet chopped on the joint, it had cleanly cut off the arm. Seeing this scene, Huang Kuan's hot-bloodedness almost immediately dropped off. However, he just went behind the zombie, closed his eyes while ignoring the disgusting black blood flowing down the hatchet, and randomly chopped towards the head and neck. Under this frightening situation, most people would be scared to the point of being unable to move. They would simply lose all power in their body to even budge. A small minority of people, on the other hand, would be able to show their body's full potential and do something that they would never be able to do. Right now, Huang Kuan was part of the latter. In reality, the zombie was truly out of luck. After having one of its arms chopped off, it had been constantly chopped at random. Its head had sustained 7 to 8 deep cuts, and the neck was eventually chopped off after 5 cuts. However, Huang Kuan now seemed to have been afflicted with hysteria. He did not stop moving the hatchet at all as he continued to chop the head that had already been lopped off. Seeing this scene, Wei Xiaobei knew that Huang Kuan had been excessively frightened. As a result, he went forward, seized the hatchet, and slapped Huang Kuan on the face. Looking back, Huang Kuan would say that he truly met the most miserable time of his life that day. He had been slapped twice by Wei Xiaobei, but he still had to thank him as his savior. After receiving the slap, Wei Xiaobei came back to his senses. He looked as if he was about to cry. Perhaps because he felt that it would be humiliating to do so, he tried to hold it back. Wei Xiaobei laughed and returned the hatchet. He patted his shoulder and encouraged him, "Not bad. You were able to kill a zombie on your first try. Your performance is a lot better than most people. Wei Xiaobei's words immediately made Huang Kuan look at the zombie that he had just killed. Big Brother Wei, have you seen other people in this place? Seeing Huang Kuan's interested appearance, Wei Xiaobei sighed, that's right. However, when they encountered the zombie, their knees gave up and died in the end. As he said this, memories of the people who died in the dust world floated up in his mind, such as the security guard that was killed by the thunderworm, the female college student that was killed by the liquor, and Huang Dejun who was killed by the mercenary. In brief, the people had no guts and died, and those who had too much guts also died. Perhaps the most important thing in the dust world was luck and not courage or strength. Huang Kuan believed Wei Xiaobei's words without doubting them. The dejection that appeared within him instantly vanished. He smiled to the point that his face looked like a steamed bun. Afterwards, he actually took the initiative and moved towards another zombie. Although he was a bit excited to the point that he almost tripped on something, his current performance was a lot better than the first time. In just 2 chops, he was able to send the zombie's head flying. In regards to courage, Huang Kuan truly had more compared to the majority of junior high students. As for techniques for dealing with zombies, he naturally could not compare to Guoshu experts like Wei Xiaobei, but as a student of the Qing clan dojo, he had trained harder and learned more than other students. With his innate talent, he was able to use all that he learned in the battle. If other students of the Qing clan dojo were to come here, they probably would have had to train a lot longer before reaching Huang Kuan's level. They might even have to pay that price with their lives. After killing his second zombie, Huang Kuan felt a bit tired, but after resting for a while, he once again charged towards another zombie. When he was killing the last zombie on the floor, he was almost scratched by the zombie, but he was able to chop off its head in the end. Huang Kuan, how do you feel? What I meant was, do you feel anything strange? Wei Xiaobei was unable to see Huang Kuan's status, so he could only ask if Huang Kuan felt anything different. For a young student like Huang Kuan, his status should not be higher than the average adult male. Even if he had trained in the dojo for a period of time, his agility and strength should be around 5 to 6 points. There should be some results after killing 4 zombies. Hearing Wei Xiaobei's question, Huang Kuan smiled as he gasped for breath, I'm a bit tired. However, I feel that I have gotten somewhat stronger. Gotten somewhat stronger? Wei Xiaobei pondered for a bit. It seemed that killing zombies gave Huang Kuan some benefits. However, Huang Kuan probably did not have a status panel. As a result, the benefits should have directly applied to his body. Huang Kuan probably had his muscle attribute increase, but his sturdiness stayed the same, but there were no visible changes so it was hard to actually tell. Moreover, Wei Xiaobei did not know if what Huang Kuan gained was 32 evolution points or not. After thinking for a bit, Wei Xiaobei let Huang Kuan clean his hand of the black blood with a worn-out shirt. He took out a bottle of water and said, wash your hands first before drinking. Huang Kuan immediately stretched out his hand and let Wei Xiaobei rinse it with a bit of water. And then he used the clean worn-out shirt to dry his hands and took 2 large gulps of water. I almost died of thirst. At this moment, Wei Xiaobei passed on a pack of hardtack to Huang Kuan. Upon seeing this, Huang Kuan became happy, Big Brother Wei, you are too awesome. You are just like a magician that has everything. Less flattery. In a while, we are going to kill zombies again. Wei Xiaobei berated him. However, looking at how Huang Kuan wolfed down the hardtack, it seemed that the pressure on his psyche had largely dissipated. It was like a person who was scared of the dark during childhood, but because they had constantly stayed in dark places for one reason or another, they had a change of psyche and eventually stopped fearing the dark. The boy's ability to endure things was much better than most people. He was unexpectedly able to eat in front of a zombie corpse. If it were other people, they would probably vomit from the sight. The boy's adaptability was strong. Wei Xiaobei gave Huang Kuan a stamp of approval in his mind. After eating the hardtack, Huang Kun looked at Wei Xiaobei's backpack and hesitantly asked, "Big brother Wei, why are you not eating? Could it be that this was the last one?" Wei Xiaobei knew that Huang Kun was worried why he was not eating. He smiled and said, "Don't worry about me, I won't eat you." Then, without giving any further explanation, he patted Huang Kun's shoulder and took the lead in going to the 5th floor. In truth, the amount of water and hardtack in his backpack was not much. After all, most of the water bottles and hardtacks were left stored around his old apartment. Wei Xiaobei did not know if he could find the way there in the dust world, especially since the topography was different from reality. However, no matter what was said, Wei Xiaobei still had high nutrition energy bars and water bags. It should be able to last him for 3 days as long as the boy did not have a huge appetite. Thinking until here, Wei Xiaobei worriedly looked at Huang Kun's slightly protruding stomach. He felt that Huang Kun should be at the point of being able to win an eating competition. The zombies in the 5th floor were a lot more compared than the zombies on the 6th. Because of Wei Xiaobei's previous movement, there were 2 zombies climbing up the escalator while 10 more of them were scattered around the area. "You take one, I'll take another, okay?" Wei Xiaobei instructed Huang Kun. "No problem, okay." Huang Kun was very eager to give it a try. Wei Xiaobei did not say much more. No matter what the situation was, he needed to test Huang Kun again. This was the only way Huang Kun would be able to survive in the dust world. With a big stride, Wei Xiaobei charged down and Huang Kun carefully followed behind. Huang Kun did not have a choice. If he charged down like Wei Xiaobei, he might just somersault down the stairs with a single misstep. As the blade was swung, a zombie head went flying. Wei Xiaobei quickly moved behind the other zombie to attract its attention away from Huang Kun, who was quickly coming down. The zombie immediately turned around and grabbed toward Wei Xiaobei. Seeing this opportunity, Huang Kun also moved. He directly jumped down and swung down his hatchet. It was a direct hit. With this jump, Huang Kun's weight and his arm strength combined, he had immediately sent the zombie head flying. The only problem was that when Huang Kun tried standing up, he staggered, while letting the hatchet fall to the floor. "It seems like I twisted my hand." Huang Kun looked at Wei Xiaobei's inquiring gaze, and miserably answered. Wei Xiaobei inspected it. Luckily, it was only a light sprain on Huang Kun's left arm. This should not affect his ability to kill zombies. After all, Huang Kun using his right arm was enough to kill zombies on flat ground. After Wei Xiaobei rubbed it, he pushed Huang Kun's butt, signaling him to continue onward. In the next few battles, Wei Xiaobei mostly stood on the side and watched Huang Kun, until he could not deal with it anymore. The first zombie died. The second zombie died. When Huang Kun was killing his 7th zombie, Wei Xiaobei helped attract one zombie towards him to let him try killing 2 at the same time. This time, Huang Kun panicked from his relaxed state. He was almost scratched by the zombie a few times. Fortunately, Wei Xiaobei paid close attention to the battle. When seeing that something was about to go wrong, he would push the zombie to the side with his machete. After bitterly fighting for more than 10 minutes, Huang Kun finally killed the 2 zombies. However, this had severely tired him out, and afterwards, he just sat directly on the ground. Before he was even able to sit down, Wei Xiaobei's movement was faster. He immediately kicked the butt that was about to land on the ground, making Huang Kun feel as if he just sat on a needle, forcing him to jump back up. "Big brother Wei, aren't you too ruthless?" That kick almost killed the future of the Huang family. Huang Kun held back his voice and muttered. "So you also know these kinds of things? Is it hard? You are prohibited from sitting down. If you are tired, circle the place once." Wei Xiaobei almost laughed out loud. Although the boy was still young, he knew quite a lot. However, after thinking about it, let alone current junior high schoolers, even current grade schoolers knew about dating, so this was not strange. When Wei Xiaobei thought about the time he was in school, he still did not know about dating when he was in senior high school. He only knew how to play games. If it was now, he was simply an upright citizen. Huang Kun had already trained in the dojo, so he naturally knew that he should not sit down after being tired, because it was bad for the body to do so. He only did it because he was truly too tired, but after being hit by Wei Xiaobei, he did not feel that tired anymore and wandered around the surroundings. He would pick up things from the ground from time to time as if he discovered some kind of treasure. In reality, the things he picked up were wrecked bras. The fifth floor was women's apparel. The worst part was that after he picked them up, he ran back to Wei Xiaobei to look for pointers. This resulted in him receiving a flick on the forehead. In the end, he could only tearfully toss away the useless things. Afterwards, he killed a few more zombies and reported the surprising change to his body. "Big brother Wei, my hand doesn't hurt anymore." Hearing this, Wei Xiaobei pulled Huang Kun over and inspected it to see that it was truly healed. The originally swollen joint had returned back to normal. Although the sprain was not severe, it was also not light. A normal person would at least require more than 2 hours to somewhat recover. On the other hand, Huang Kun was all better now. This meant that Huang Kun might have had an increase in health when he killed the zombies. Another thing that Wei Xiaobei noticed was that Huang Kun's stamina had quickly recovered. This made Wei Xiaobei have a slight understanding on how things worked. It seems that Huang Kun's body was allocating points based on his body's needs. For example, when he needed more strength to kill the zombies, his points seemed to have been self-allocated towards his muscle attribute. When his hand was sprained, his health attribute seemed to have increased. When his stamina was lacking, his endurance should have increased. Naturally, Wei Xiaobei did not dare say this was for certain. After all, if the body self-allocated the evolution points like this, then this could have happened to Huang Kun. In short, Huang Kun had not yet killed a lot of zombies. If Wei Xiaobei wanted to confirm his theory, then Huang Kun needed to kill more zombies for him to visibly see the changes. As he urged Huang Kun to kill more zombies, Wei Xiaobei noticed that he had overworked Huang Kun. After all, an increase in stamina with just 15 zombies was not a lot. Wei Xiaobei let Huang Kun rest and killed the rest of the zombies. After clearing the 5th floor, Wei Xiaobei returned back and made Huang Kun lie down on the ground. "What are you doing, big brother Wei?" Huang Kun did not know if it was a joke or if he should be afraid, so he pretended to be pitiful. This made Wei Xiaobei not know if he should laugh or cry. "Hurry up. I'll give you a massage to recover your stamina and prevent you from dying to a zombie." Wei Xiaobei scolded him and pressed Huang Kun down on the ground. Afterwards, Wei Xiaobei's hands were like steel claws as they massaged Huang Kun. This massage technique was passed down from Cheng Bai Wu. It was able to alleviate muscle fatigue and eliminate the pain coming from inside the body. The benefits were indeed not small. A normal person would also not be able to learn this. The only problematic thing was that the feeling of the massage was not good. As Huang Kun was being massaged by Wei Xiaobei, he tightly clenched his mouth. Seeing his head full of sweat was enough to tell that he was in pain. When Wei Xiaobei let go, he pulled Huang Kun up. Huang Kun let out a sigh, showing an expression of resentment. "Big brother Wei, whoever marries you in the future would probably die early." "Why?" Wei Xiaobei was momentarily unable to catch up to the mind of a junior high schooler while wiping off the sweat on his hands with a clean cloth. "If you did this every day, even a man made of iron would cry." "Ow!" Before Huang Kun finished his sentence, Wei Xiaobei already understood that the boy was actually mocking him. He immediately hit Huang Kun on the head, making him cry out in pain. Luckily, there was an escalator. If those zombies heard the sound, they would not be able to climb up for more than half an hour. "Big brother Wei, if you hit me this much, I'll become stupid, and then you'll lose this adorable disciple." Huang Kuan's mind truly moved fast. He had suddenly turned himself into Wei Xiaobei's disciple. Being able to turn Wei Xiaobei into his master was his good fortune. However, Huang Kuan did not think about things carefully. Which person would call their master, big brother? You brat, maybe I should roughen you up a bit. Wei Xiaobei was fond of Huang Kuan. In the dust world, Huang Kuan's adaptability was good. Although he was not a fish in the water, at the very least, he would not die early. After being hit by Wei Xiaobei again, Huang Kuan did not dare say anything more. However, for a second-year junior high student like him, not speaking was like being subject to the top 10 Manchurian torture techniques. As a result, it did not take long before he carefully spoke again. Big brother Wei, can you tell me about the changes in my body? Would there be any side effects? Huang Kuan was not stupid. This was the second mark of approval that Wei Xiaobei gave Huang Kuan. Wei Xiaobei did not hide anything from Huang Kuan. He pointed at the tattered cushion, indicating that they should sit down. After sitting down, he told him things about the dust world. Naturally, he did not talk about the status panel. He only told him how killing monsters would make the body stronger, faster, healthier, and others. Other than that, he also told Huang Kuan about the monsters he had encountered before. Wei Xiaobei's words made Huang Kuan's eyes sparkle as he continued listening. Without a doubt, his words made Huang Kuan's imagination run wild. In truth, the dust world could be considered as a treasure trove. A treasure trove for power. As long as a person killed monsters, their strength would increase to the point that they could even become superheroes. If it was an adult who had suffered through enough hardships, they would probably feel that survival is better than being strong. However, for junior high schoolers, whose daydream of becoming heroes that saved people and saved the world, this place was a paradise where they could increase their power. If they became stronger, they would be able to become the heroes that they wanted to be. In short, everything was brilliant. For a moment, Huang Kuan sunk into his own fantasies. He imagined countless people cheering for him and greeting him with respect. Everywhere he went, people would point at him and say, "Look! It's hero Huang Kuan who just saved G City. Huang Kuan. You are the idol of the entire school. We have decided to place all the red flags in your classroom to honor your glorious achievement. Huang Kuan, I love you. I love you as much as a mouse loves rice." Waves of beautiful women would cheer for him, making his cheeks blush. Seeing Huang Kuan stupidly sitting there while drooling and blushing, Wei Xiaobei could not help but sigh. What the hell is this boy thinking about? In truth, Wei Xiaobei told Huang Kuan all of these to see his thoughts. Although Huang Kuan was just a junior high schooler with a pure mind, people could easily change. Wei Xiaobei wanted to know his reaction before planning things. After all, no matter how strong Wei Xiaobei was, bringing a bad-tempered person would become troublesome in many situations. After a while, Huang Kuan finally snapped out of his daydream. He looked at Wei Xiaobei and kneeled down. "What are you doing?" Wei Xiaobei was astonished. Could it be that his brain had broken down? "Big brother Wei, please accept me as your disciple. I want to learn martial arts with you." Huang Kuan was now showing a rarely seen seriousness, as if he just made a heavy decision. "Why? Give me a reason." Wei Xiaobei pulled back the smile on his face and seriously asked. "I want to become stronger. I want to become a hero." These plain and simple words seemed as if the person speaking did not know how high the sky was. However, Wei Xiaobei smiled. Just based on Huang Kuan's words, he was able to understand that Huang Kuan was still on the purer side. In simpler words, Huang Kuan was still innocent, untainted by the filth of society. After all, he was still a child. Wei Xiaobei sighed and smiled, "There is no need to make me your master. You have not graduated yet." Wei Xiaobei's rejection did not dispel Huang Kuan's thoughts at all. He eagerly said, "Big Brother Wei, this is not a formal discipleship. It is only in name. I am only your disciple in name." In the end, Huang Kuan kept pestering him, making Wei Xiaobei nod in consent. In truth, establishing a certain level of closeness was a good thing for Wei Xiaobei. At the very least, asking things would be much easier. After taking a short rest, Wei Xiaobei stood back up and Huang Kuan followed him. However, Huang Kuan's stamina had been heavily drained, so he almost tripped when he stood up. "Enough, take a longer break." Wei Xiaobei pushed Huang Kuan back down. It would be a joke if Wei Xiaobei allowed Huang Kuan to follow him in combing out the lower floors. Huang Kuan currently did not have any stamina, so if he followed him down, he was only seeking death. Okay. Huang Kuan was well behaved as he sat back down, but his eyes were still staring at Wei Xiaobei. Wei Xiaobei did not pay any more attention to this and went down to the fourth floor. Right now, most of the zombies were scattered through the first to fourth floors. From his previous response search, Wei Xiaobei had already known about the zombies in each floor. The first floor had the most zombies. There were about 400 of them covering the entire floor. There was a sharp decline in the amount on the second floor, with only about 200 of them. The third floor had 100, while the fourth floor had 50. This was the distribution of zombies in every floor. It had truly appeared like a pyramid. However, even if that was so, 50 zombies was not something a brat like Huang Kuan could handle. Bang! Wei Xiaobei let out a sound as he landed on the fourth floor. He could not help but frown at the slightly heavy feeling of his body. Even if he had increased most of his agility sub-attributes, it was still easy for him to cause sounds from just his jump. He wondered if he should go learn some kind of martial art that would make him lighter. Wei Xiaobei's landing had caused a few zombies to notice him, causing them to surround Wei Xiaobei. With just this many zombies, Wei Xiaobei did not care at all. He crouched down and slashed at their leg joints with his machete. With a few whooshing sounds, the zombies had fallen down. They could only use their hands to move, largely decreasing the threat they posed. Afterwards, Wei Xiaobei directly charged towards a group of 20 zombies that were together. This group was the biggest group of zombies on the fourth floor. After being lured in by Wei Xiaobei, they surrounded him. Facing the zombies in a circle, Wei Xiaobei was not able to just cut all of their leg joints. Instead, some had their heads cut off, some, their arms, and some, their legs. In short, when Wei Xiaobei had left the zombies behind, they were all missing a few body parts. Just like that, Wei Xiaobei moved around the fourth floor. Of the 50 zombies on the floor, some were killed and some were injured, decreasing their forces by a lot. Even the zombies chasing behind Wei Xiaobei had at least an arm cut off. "Come down." Wei Xiaobei stood in front of the escalator. He did not even turn back and swung his machete, killing a zombie that was attempting to ambush him from behind. Although Huang Kuan did not have enough rest, he had stayed long enough on the higher floor. Hearing Wei Xiaobei's voice, he immediately rushed down. "Master, careful." Another zombie pounced from behind Wei Xiaobei again. With a whoosh, the blade cut off the zombie's head. "It's your turn." If Wei Xiaobei wanted to see more changes to Huang Kuan's body, he needed Huang Kuan to kill more zombies. Moreover, because of their age difference, Huang Kuan's stamina could only support him a short amount of time. As a result, Wei Xiaobei had weakened the zombies beforehand. Abominable zombies. Huang Kuan made a pose which almost made him receive another kick in the butt from Wei Xiaobei. He did not dare speak anymore and charged forward with his hatchet. After losing some limbs, the zombies appeared much more terrifying, but in terms of battle ability, they had probably been reduced to 70% of their former selves. For Huang Kuan, those kinds of zombies gave him the greatest opportunity to temper himself. Even if the 4 to 5 zombies surrounded him, he would be able to safely deal with them. The only problematic thing was whether or not his stamina could continue supporting him. Time slowly passed by, and Wei Xiaobei carefully observed from the side as Huang Kun kept killing zombies. The changes in his body became even clearer. After cleaning up the zombies on the fourth floor, Huang Kun was gasping for breath, but did not limp on the floor. In this battle, Huang Kun had killed 37 zombies. Because it was necessary to chop off or destroy the zombie's head, a large jag appeared on the hatchet. Even if the zombie's bones were weaker than a human's, they were still bones. As a result, his hatchet was ready to be scrapped. Other than that, he needed to dodge the zombie's attacks, which heavily consumed his stamina. If it was the Wei Xiaobei that had just entered the dust world, he probably would not have been able to even stand after killing 37 zombies. Huang Kun still had the energy to remain standing. This proved that his endurance attribute had increased a lot. From Wei Xiaobei's point of view, Huang Kun's benefits from killing the zombies were mostly placed into his muscle, endurance, and health. Among them, endurance increased the most. The sub-attributes under agility should have also had slight increases. The entire process of this should be following the rule of increasing what was needed. Which attribute was used the most at that time was increased. This kind of attribute increase was different from Wei Xiaobei's control over his status panel. Moreover, the efficiency should be around less than 70% of the status panel. Adding to the zombies that Huang Kun previously killed, he had killed 52 zombies. Every zombie gave 8 evolution points. 52 zombies would mean 416 evolution points. From Huang Kun's appearance, roughly around only 280 evolution points were allocated. Naturally, for a brat like Huang Kun, the changes caused by an additional 280 evolution points allocated into his 3 attributes was very visible. After all, the average junior high schooler's status value should be around 5. An increase in endurance would be clearly visible. In truth, Huang Kun himself felt changes to his body. After a short break, he had actually taken the initiative to go down and kill zombies. As previously said, the distribution of the zombies was like a pyramid. The amount of zombies on the 3rd floor numbered around 100. They were also densely packed together. Moreover, a slight error would be able to attract the attention of the zombies on the 2nd floor. The zombies mainly used their hearing to chase their prey and not their sight. For this reason, Wei Xiaobei allowed Huang Kun to move to the middle of the escalator. The two of them each guarded the up and down escalator. Then, they threw down an old clothes rack on the floor to attract their attention. This way, they would just wait for the enemy to come up, preventing the enemy to surround them. Moreover, Wei Xiaobei would be able to bring away Huang Kun if any problems happened. The clothes rack fell on the ground, creating a clear sound. The sound was like a magnet attracting the zombies. If Wei Xiaobei used his response search right now, he would see that there were also zombies in the 2nd floor that were attracted to the sound. He would see how the zombies would look up at the ceiling with their open mouths filled with rotting teeth. This appearance looked as if they were about to bite a hole onto the ceiling. After throwing the clothes rack, a group of more than 50 zombies crowded the escalator, striving to be first to go up the escalator. They extended their hand and pulled down the ones in front with a slow speed. The hatchet in Huang Kun's hand was his 2nd one. The previous one had been worn out to the point that it could even fall off the handle and chop off his own foot. Luckily, the fire prevention measures of the department store was not bad. Although the fire hose was tattered, the hatchets still maintained their original appearance. Seeing that a zombie had climbed up a few steps, Huang Kun went down a few steps and chopped down. Facing the hatchet, the zombie did not even have the awareness to dodge. It only extended its hands towards Huang Kun, and in the end, its head was chopped in half, but this time, the hatchet got stuck. Huang Kun had already previously experienced this a few times. He grabbed the handrail with his left hand and kicked with his right foot. The hatchet dislodged from the zombie, while it fell flat on the escalator. With the escalator acting almost as a funnel, Huang Kuan was able to kill the zombies much more comfortably. The only problem was that after killing zombies one after the other, the corpses accumulating on the escalator was continually increasing. As a result, when the zombies climbed up, they were in a higher position than Huang Kuan. Under this situation, Huang Kuan had no choice but to retreat. After distancing himself, he was able to get rid of the zombies' advantage. However, the escalator was too short. After killing more than 20 zombies, Huang Kuan had no choice but to retreat back to the 4th floor. By contrast, Wei Xiaobei was still standing in his original position. Those zombies that had died were kicked back to the 3rd floor by him. Seeing this scene, Huang Kuan was in admiration. However, this had caused a huge desire to arise from him. Until when can I become able to kill zombies as easily as master? He had become distracted at that moment. If Wei Xiaobei did not make his move, Huang Kuan would have probably been given a kiss by an incoming zombie. Huang Kuan, who was saved by Wei Xiaobei, did not show a terrified expression at all. On the contrary, he once again charged towards the zombies after picking up his hatchet. At this time, a few zombies had already climbed up the 4th floor. Wei Xiaobei immediately pulled Huang Kuan back and dragged him towards the 5th floor. This was the benefit of being in a building. The ground was flat, so retreating and advancing was easy. They could easily retreat back up to the 9th floor. In reality, the total amount of zombies on the 3rd floor was around 100. After the two of them killed zombies on the escalator, they had killed more than 50 zombies. The zombies that were able to catch up to them were about 20, while the remaining zombies were still slowly climbing up the escalator. Seeing that Huang Kuan had used up a lot of stamina, Wei Xiaobei did not hold back. He quickly waved his machete like he was dancing. Before they went up to the 5th floor, the zombies that were chasing them were all killed. Soon, the two of them once again returned to the 3rd to 4th floor escalator and killed the zombies that were climbing up. After killing all the zombies on the 3rd floor, Wei Xiaobei felt slightly tired. As for Huang Kuan, he had already sat down on the floor without being able to budge anymore. On 100 over zombies, Wei Xiaobei had killed 60% while the rest were from Huang Kuan's hatchet. Although Huang Kuan's status would increase after killing the zombies, his mental weariness did not have any time to recover. In other words, the battle that lasted for half an hour had completely spent Huang Kuan. Even his potential had been spent. Seeing Huang Kuan on the floor, Wei Xiaobei frowned. There were still 600 zombies downstairs. At this time, Wei Xiaobei also considered his own stamina. If a person had completely spent their stamina, they would not be able to face against an encirclement of zombies no matter how strong they were. Let alone the mysterious dust world, if a person did not have enough stamina, they could only sit in the face of death when danger came. Rest for a bit. Wei Xiaobei sat close to the escalator while ignoring the disgusting smell coming from the corpses. He took out a bottle of water and hardtack and gave them to Huang Kuan. Huang Kuan waved his hand, indicating that he did not feel like eating. Wei Xiaobei knew that this was not because Huang Kuan did not need the energy, but because spending his stamina had suppressed the feeling of hunger. You must eat. Wei Xiaobei did not say much. He patted Huang Kuan's head, patting it harder and harder until Huang Kuan took the water and food and began eating slowly. Wei Xiaobei counted the food and water in his backpack. There were still a lot of high-nutrition energy bars and convenient water bags. But the hardtack had been decreased to 2 and the bottled water to 1. After drinking water, he took out a high-nutrition energy bar and ate it. In truth, he did not care about what he ate, but eating the same thing all the time would eventually destroy how the food tasted. After eating the high-nutrition energy bar, Wei Xiaobei suddenly stood up. He took big strides towards the window and looked outside. Seeing Wei Xiaobei's appearance, Huang Kuan did not know what happened, but he did not dare delay and stood up as well. He immediately stuffed the hardtack in his mouth and accidentally choked on it. He immediately drank all the water to clear his throat.